Chapter 1009. When Muron's smile was polite and courteous. "Mister, don't you recognize me?" Sumo said. "Huh." When Muron's expression was slightly awkward. "Forgive my forgetfulness, but I really can't remember when I've seen you." Sumo's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. It was simply unbelievable. How could Muron not remember her? She was now Xiao Luo, and Muron would still remember her even after reincarnation. "Are you Mr. Wen?" Sumo asked tentatively. "That's right. I am Muron. May I know your name?" Muron cupped his fist at Sumo. "I am Xiao Luo," Sumo said. "Xiao Luo." Muron heard Sumo's name and pondered for a moment, as if trying hard to remember when he had seen this beautiful cultivator. Sumo's beauty was like a demon's. He would never forget such a person if he had seen her before. However, he was sure that he did not know this young man. "You're also from the Northern Kingdom?" Muron asked Sumo. "The Northern Kingdom?" Sumo was slightly taken aback. There was no such kingdom in his memory. In fact, Lujan had been in the Northern Kingdom, but Sumo did not know about it. To Sumo, the Northern Kingdom was simply too insignificant. "Isn't this circular area of 10,000 miles the Murong dynasty's territory?" Sumo retorted. "The Murong dynasty?" This time, it was Muron's turn to be taken aback. "Mister, I can tell that you're not a local. There is no such thing as the Murong dynasty in the entire Beihuang region. The Northern Kingdom is the only country in the Beihuang region where immortals and mortals coexist. It has existed for tens of thousands of years. Other than the few immortal sects in the Beihuang region, the Northern Kingdom has completely unified the Beihuang region." "Oh." Sumo was shocked. At this moment, he somewhat understood. The current three realms was probably no longer the three realms he had once lived in. This was a space-time that was similar to the three realms of the past, but also completely different. "Sir, I'm indeed a little confused." Sumo apologized. "This place seems to be a little different from what I know. Please enlighten me." "I dare not advise you," Muron said, "but if you have nothing to do, I am willing to accompany you for a stroll around the city. We, the people of the Northern Kingdom, are very hospitable." "All right. Thank you, sir." Sumo nodded. At the same time, he sighed with emotion at Muron's tone. He didn't call himself a cultivator, but rather a northerner. True immortal realm. This was based on the level of the three realms in the past. According to the classification of the Izong realm, Muron should be in the undying realm. No matter what, this realm could be said to be extremely low in Sumo's eyes. However, on Muron's body, there seemed to be a kind of free and unfettered temperament. This kind of temperament was something that Sumo had never seen on Muron in the past. Muron pointed ahead with one hand. 75 kilometers away is the Northern Kingdom's Yinchi city. I am going there to visit an old friend. If you're interested, why not come with me? "All right." Sumo nodded. "This is my first time coming to your honorable land, and I'm also traveling. I'm not familiar with anything, so it's a good opportunity for me to broaden my horizons." Muron nodded. Actually, in his memory, there was no existence of Sumo at all. Right now, he couldn't see through Sumo's cultivation at all. Of course, he didn't care if Sumo was an immortal or immortal. However, when he first met Sumo, he felt that they were congenial. Moreover, the cultivators of the Northern Kingdom were hospitable. Thus, he traveled together with Sumo. 75 kilometers. If they used Dharma spells, they would be able to cover it in an instant. However, Muron walked slowly and leisurely, as if he was immortal. The scenery on both sides of the valley was excellent. Muron was like a tour guide, giving Sumo directions everywhere. Sumo nodded from time to time, next to Muron, and occasionally asked a few questions. In fact, Sumo had been to this valley before, but this was the first time that Sumo had heard many of the cultural stories that Muron had told her. At that moment, Sumo was even in a trance for a moment, because everything here was just like in the past. However, when they passed this valley, Mr. Wen talked to her about the general situation of the northern wilderness and how to cultivate. Now, Mr. Wen's tone was relaxed and humorous. Back then, Mr. Wen's tone was like a deep sigh. After all, Nurturing Xiao Luo and rebuilding the Taiwan sect had been Wen Yuan's lifelong dream. Therefore, every minute and every moment of those years, Wen Yuan had been racking his brains for the Taiwan sect and Xiao Luo. He had never belonged to himself. But now, Wen Yuan was enjoying the scenery and had no worries. He was completely different from the Wen Yuan of the past. 70 miles. Sumo followed Wen Yuan until the sky was getting dark. They finally arrived at the outskirts of Yunchi City. Sumo had seen this city before, but she didn't pay much attention to it. Back then, there didn't seem to be such a city here. Wen Yuan still entered the city normally with Sumo. Wen Yuan didn't use any Dharma spells along the way. If it wasn't for the fact that Sumo could see through Wen Yuan's level of cultivation, she would have thought that he was immortal. Inside Yunchi City, immortals and mortals lived together. Sumo scanned with her divine sense and knew that the ratio of immortals and mortals here was actually half to half. Such a ratio of immortals and mortals was rarely seen in ordinary places. If it was a mortal town, generally there were mostly mortals and cultivators. If it was an immortal city, generally there were mostly cultivators and very few mortals. But Yunchi City was different. There seemed to be no boundary between immortals and mortals. Because Sumo saw with her own eyes that a steamed bun seller turned out to be a deity tribulation cultivator, while the buyer was a pure mortal. They were completely equal to each other, getting along naturally. This scene was something that Sumo had almost never seen before. Everything here was subverting Sumo's understanding. Inside Yunchi City, it was quite lively. In Sumo's memory, Wen Yuan didn't like this kind of liveliness, because he thought that it was too noisy and affected his thinking. In those years, the places where Wen Yuan and Sumo stayed were mostly deep in the mountains and valleys. Usually, they would never come to ordinary cities. All their time was either spent on cultivation or on the path of cultivation. But the Wen Yuan in front of her looked calm, with a slight smile on his face. He seemed to appreciate this scene of immortals and mortals having fun together. "Sir, do you come here often?" Sumo asked. And when Yuan nodded his head, "I come here about once every 5 or 6 years, mainly to see my old friends, stay for a few days, and then leave. The world is big, and there are many friends, but I can still move around." "Huh." When Yuan was in high spirits. Sumo nodded her head. At this time, she was a little curious about who Yuan's old friends were and whether she knew them or not. After crossing a long street, they turned a corner. They came to a relatively secluded long street. At the end of the long street, there was a courtyard. That courtyard had high walls. There were 2 black doors with brass knockers. From the looks of it, although it wasn't a noble's mansion, it was definitely a wealthy one. When Yuan stepped forward and knocked on the door knocker. Clap, clap, clap. "Who is it?" someone at the door asked. "Huh, Bai Fu. Tell the white-browed old man that I, Wen Yuan, have arrived." Wen Yuan said with a smile. White-browed old man. Sumo's heart skipped a beat. Chapter 10:10. Creak. 2 black doors opened, and an old servant in his 60s walked out. When the servant saw Wen Yuan, he quickly bowed and saluted. "Sure enough, Mr. Wen has arrived. Master was talking about you a few days ago. Please come in." "Huh, Bai Fu, your complexion is getting better and better," Wen Yuan said with a smile. "Thanks to you." Bai Fu bowed and led Wen Yuan and Sumo into the courtyard. Sumo observed secretly. The residence was a 3-layered courtyard. It was built in an ancient style, and the furnishings were exquisite. Bai Fu led them to the second door. At this moment, a figure who looked like an old official came out to greet them. Behind him were 2 young attendants. Sumo frowned as soon as he saw the person who looked like a squire. The man looked to be in his 40s, and he was dressed in a plain robe. He was quite handsome, and the most special thing about him was his pair of snow-white eyebrows. They did not look like those of a middle-aged man. They looked more like the long-lived eyebrows of an old man. Yanjiang. When Wen Yuan mentioned the white-browed old man, Sumo thought of Yanjiang. Yanjiang had a pair of white eyebrows. In the past, Star Monarch Lianjun had an evil temperament and was extremely intelligent. However, the Star Lord Lianjun in front of him was calm and had the demeanor of a gentleman. However, The most important thing was that he was immortal. Sumo was shocked. Mortal? With Sumo's current cultivation, unless one was like the Fahrenheit King, he would not be able to appear in front of Sumo. Otherwise, he would not appear in front of Sumo as a mortal. The star monarch, Lien Jun, in front of him was really immortal. Huh. By now, Star Lianjun was standing in front of Wen Muron. Keeper, I reckon you'll be here soon. Where have you been all these years? I'm almost done with Beihuang. I've been in Qingyuan for the past few years. Wen Muron said with a smile, in 2 years, I'll go to the Eastern Ridge to take a look. Mad Monk, it's been a few years since we last met. Sightseeing, leisurely, and carefree. You seem to be living a carefree life. If there's a chance, I also want to walk with you. Yan Jiang said with a smile. That's great. As long as you're healthy, there's no problem. I'm just afraid that you won't be willing to part with this huge family business, Wen Muron said. My body is fine. I really can't bear to part with the family business. Yan Jiang laughed, then looked at Sumo and asked Wen Muron, this little brother, you are very handsome, but you look a bit unfamiliar. Your friend? I am Xiao Luo, greetings. Sumo hesitated for a moment, because he didn't know how to address Yan Jiang. You can call him Old Man by May. Wen Muron said with a smile, don't be fooled by his middle-aged appearance. He's actually hundreds of years old. This little old man is Lien Jun. Yan Jiang cupped his hands at Sumo. Welcome, little brother Xiao. Lien Jun's attitude was amiable, but he didn't know Xiao Luo at all. Greetings again, Mr. Lien. Sumo cupped his hands and bowed. At this moment, Sumo was a bit confused. Why was he still immortal after hundreds of years? Little brother Xiao is a friend I met on the way. He's new to Beihuang, so he's not familiar with everything. So I invited him to join us. Wen Muron said, all right, I've been feeling bored these few days. Let's sit inside. As he spoke, Yan Jiang led Wen Muron and Sumo into the second courtyard. In the main hall of the second courtyard, everyone sat down according to the host and guest. Sumo observed carefully and realized that the entire courtyard was filled with mortals, not a single cultivator. The servants served tea, and Lien Jun and Wen Muron chatted happily. Sumo sipped the tea and listened carefully. However, the two of them were talking about ordinary things. Some of the things Sumo could understand, but some of the things Sumo couldn't understand at all. This was because some things had never happened in the three realms. However, from their conversation, Sumo learned that Yan Jiang was now a rich man in Yinchi City. In his hands, he controlled thousands of acres of fertile land, as well as many kinds of industries. Normally, Yan Jiang was like a rich mortal, eating, drinking, and managing all kinds of industries. As for Wen Muron, he was a rogue cultivator, traveling everywhere and never getting tired of it. Their lives were completely different, but they were best friends. Little brother Xiao, where did you come from? Did you go around Yinchi City? At this time, Yan Jiang said to Sumo, I am from the Demon Continent. Sumo answered tentatively, this is my first time in Yinchi City. People from the Demon Continent? Star Monarch Lien Jun was stunned. He could not help but look at Wen Muron. Keeper, where is the Demon Continent? Wen Muron had just heard that Sumo was from the Demon Continent. Unfortunately, he had never heard of the so-called Demon Continent. Where is the Demon Continent? Wen Muron asked. Sumo hesitated for a moment, not knowing how to answer. The Demon Continent is a world like the desolate sea Divine Continent. I come from that place, and the culture there is different from the desolate sea Divine Continent. So, I'm not familiar with the Divine Continent. Oh, Demon Continent. When Wen Muron heard this, he could not help but nod his head. Previously, I always thought that the Divine Continent was vast and endless. I never thought that there would be a world outside of the Divine Continent. Indeed, the universe is boundless. After saying this, Wen Muron did not ask any further. It was as if where Sumo came from was not important at all. Little brother Xiao, are you also a loose cultivator? Yan Jiang asked. Yes, a loose cultivator traveling everywhere. Sumo smiled and said, Mr. Lien, are you immortal? Why don't you cultivate and become a cultivator? Just like Mr. One, you can also be free and unfettered. Cultivate, become a cultivator? When Yanjiang heard Sumo's words, he could not help but be stunned once again. When Muron also looked at Sumo in astonishment. For a moment, Sumo did not know what was going on. Little brother Xiao, can cultivators cultivate? Yanjiang looked at Sumo. Huh? When Sumo heard this, she smiled and asked, don't cultivators cultivate? When Yanjiang and when Muron heard this, they could not help but look at each other. Little brother Xiao, all the cultivators of the demon continent cultivate? When Muron asked in surprise. Of course. Sumo nodded and said, don't all the cultivators in the world cultivate? The demon continent is no exception. Oh, when Muron heard this, he was stunned. Then, he shook his head and said, our divine continent is not like this. What do you mean? Sumo said, we, the people of the divine continent, are destined to be immortals and mortals from birth. We do not need to cultivate at all. Yanjiang said at the side, we have never known what cultivation is. How is that possible? Sumo said in shock. Huh, why is it not possible? When Muron said, little brother Xiao, the world is different and the rules are different. The divine continent is really like this. Born as mortals, born as immortals. Everything seems to have been decided, and it can't be changed at all. I was born as an immortal, and I have never cultivated. Chapter 10:11. Born as a mortal, born as an immortal. When Muron's words caused Sumo to be extremely flabbergasted. Sumo could be considered to be very knowledgeable after going through endless reincarnations and roaming the various realms. If one were to start from the beginning of life, Sumo himself did not know how many years he had experienced. In the past, everyone in the immeasurable heaven continent was born with immortal roots. They could choose whether to cultivate or not, to be an immortal or immortal. However, Sumo had never heard of a world where one was born as an immortal or immortal. At this moment, Sumo had some doubts as to whether the world he was currently in really existed. Mr. One, then you're saying that you were already an undead realm cultivator when you were still a baby? Sumo asked again. When Muron shook his head, little brother Xiao, it seems like our two worlds are really different. We, the people of the desolate sea divine continent, are born with knowledge. I was born with this appearance. How could there be a baby period? Oh, Sumo said. Mr. means to say that you were born with this appearance. Yes. When Muron nodded his head. However, to be precise, I appeared and not was born. We, the people of the desolate sea divine continent, come from nothing and go to nothing. Sumo was stunned, because he did not understand what Muron was saying. Little brother Xiao, we, the people of the desolate sea divine continent, will appear and then disappear. Yanjiang said from the side. For example, I appeared about 700 years ago. The moment I appeared, I was like this. I was born as a mortal, and this old scholar seemed to have appeared earlier. The moment he appeared, he was a cultivator. The life and death of us, the people of the desolate sea divine continent, is to appear and disappear. The process in between is a lifetime. Then do you have memories from before you appeared? Sumo asked. What memories from before you appeared? Lianjun asked in confusion. If we appeared, we appeared. How could there be before? Before, we did not exist. This, Sumo still wanted to say something. However, he suddenly felt a sense of powerlessness, because he understood that when Muron and Yanjiang's perception was completely different from his. Summer insects cannot talk about ice. He wanted to use his own way of thinking to explain everything to Muron and Yanjiang, but they couldn't understand him at all. At this moment, the banquet was served. When Muron and Yanjiang did not dwell on the conversation just now, that was because they were already used to people and things appearing out of thin air. As far as they knew, all of this was extremely normal. Therefore, they didn't care where Sumo came from or who she was. They only cared about what would happen to this young man in front of them in the future. Come. Yanjiang warmly welcomed when Muron and Sumo back to their seats. Recently, I got a new chef. His skills are not bad. Let's try it together. When Muron naturally didn't stand on ceremony, Sumo had many questions in his heart, but he couldn't get the answers for now. Therefore, everyone gathered around the table and toasted each other. In the beginning, Sumo couldn't let it go, because he always had some questions in his heart. However, Lien Jun and Wen Muron were in high spirits. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, and they felt like old friends at first sight of Sumo. Gradually, Sumo let go of some of his thoughts and got into a good mood. No matter what, teacher was still teacher in Sumo's heart, and Lien Jun was still Lien Jun in Sumo's heart. They might look at Sumo differently, but Sumo still looked at them the same way. Even if they were in a stolen time and space, Sumo was willing to get drunk with them again. After all, that was something that Sumo could only hope to encounter. They drank from dusk to dusk again, for a whole day and night. Although Yanjiang was immortal, his alcohol tolerance wasn't bad at all. He and Wen Muron drank more than 10 jars of aged wine before they got drunk and were sent back to their rooms by the servants to rest. They enjoyed themselves to the fullest. Of course, Sumo wasn't drunk, because he was a Lotus Scholar. If he wanted to get drunk, he would probably have to drink with a Lotus Scholar. In the end, he asked to walk around the courtyard alone. The servants and the residents were very polite, so they followed Sumo's wishes. In the dead of night, Sumo stood alone in the courtyard. A feeling of loneliness came over him. There was no moon in this world, but the sky was filled with stars. The stars were dazzling, endlessly magnificent. If not for everything that happened before, Sumo would definitely think that he was still in the three realms. Time flies, things remain the same, but people have changed. At this moment, he seemed to have a deeper understanding of the words left behind by Murong Haiqing on the back mountain of the sacred mountain. What kind of world was this? Was all of this an illusion? Were Mr. One and Yanjiang the so-called Tao shadows? In that case, should he take them away so that they can be reborn? Who else was there in this world? Was Xiao Huang there? Would he be the same as the two Star Lords? Sumo's mind was in a mess. He didn't have an answer. For a long time, Sumo kept looking at the stars in the sky, like a mortal looking up at the starry sky. But in the end, he didn't think about anything. He seemed to be emptying his mind. Dong, dong, a melodious and heavy bell sound woke Sumo up from his emptiness. It was the bell of a temple in Yunchi City. He also heard it last night. It was midnight now. Sumo took a deep breath and then rose into the air. The entire Yunchi City was quiet. This city worked at sunrise and rested at sunset. It had a kind of quiet and natural beauty. Sometimes, immortals were also a kind of noise. Su-Mo floated tens of thousands of feet in the air and looked down at the entire land. Mountains, rivers, living beings, all things, this seemed to be the desolate ocean divine continent he was familiar with. It was full of life and prosperity. Then, Sumo made up his mind. He patted his storage bag, and 3,000 puppets flew out. Then, Su-Mo gently blew a breath of air. Whoosh! 3,000 purple-clothed people lined up in front of Sumo. Now, Sumo was already a Lotus Scholar. In a sense, his magic power could be said to be omnipotent. These 3,000 puppets were all at the peak of the one-lifetime immortal realm. In the three realms of the past, they were all original immortals. That was equivalent to 3,000 cold jades. Tonight, search the entire desolate ocean divine continent. I want to find Murong Haiqing. Sumo's voice was low. At that moment, he seemed to be the dark sovereign of the past. Calm and gloomy. Whoosh! Under Sumo's command, the 3,000 original immortals scattered. They were all puppets, which meant they were the executors of Sumo's will. 3,000 original immortals were enough to dig 3 feet into the desolate ocean divine continent. Therefore, as long as Murong Haiqing was in the desolate ocean divine continent, he would definitely be found. In this world, the only one who could communicate with Sumo was Murong Haiqing. Then, Sumo sat in the air and closed his eyes, waiting for news. 2 hours, 4 hours. The 3,000 original immortals had already scattered to every corner of the desolate ocean divine continent. The nights in the desolate north were relatively long. Just as dawn was about to break, Sumo's heart skipped a beat. News came from the East Ridge. Murong Haiqing had been found. Without any hesitation, Sumo stood up and made his way to the East Ridge. Chapter 10:12. Desolate Ocean Eastern Ridge, 100,000 Mountains. This was once the habitat of Brahma Temple and the Desolate Ocean demon race. Now, whether there was still Brahma Temple, or even whether there was a Paradise Earth lineage above the Sea of Bitterness was not what Sumo was most concerned about. What he wanted to find the most now was Murong Haiching. At this moment, one of the 3,000 puppets was standing on a large mountain in Eastern Ridge. Opposite the mountain was the vast and boundless Sea of Bitterness. The puppet's purple robe fluttered, but he did not move. He only cast his gaze at a mountain not far to the left. That mountain was also beside the Sea of Bitterness. There was a strange rock on the cliff. That rock was like the head of a giant dragon, directly reaching into the Sea of Bitterness. That protruding rock was 4 to 5 feet long. At this moment, there was a female cultivator standing on that rock. She wore a white robe and a white skirt and was covered in cold mist. She was none other than the 100th generation successor of the ancient vast ocean flow, Murong Haiching. At this moment, her expression was calm, without sadness or joy. However, she seemed to be looking towards the east, but it was unknown what she was looking at. At this moment, there was a fluctuation of spiritual energy around the purple-clothed puppet. Looking again, Sumo took a step out of the void. Then, the puppet turned into a ray of purple light and returned to Sumo's storage bag. Sumo saw Murong Haiching a glance. Then, with a thought, the 3,000 puppets of the desolate ocean divine continent all returned. Then, Sumo took a step forward and directly landed on that rock. Actually, Sumo's appearance was very sudden. Murong Haiching naturally turned his head and saw that it was Sumo. A hint of surprise flashed in her eyes, but it soon disappeared. It was like a flame that was about to ignite, but was instantly extinguished just as it was about to rise. "Who are you?" Murong Haiching said indifferently. Hearing Murong Haiching's words, Sumo could not help but frown and immediately said, "Why, you don't recognize me." "Huh?" When Murong Haiching heard this, he shook his head helplessly. "In this world, I know many people, but none of them knew me. Actually, I know you too. However, I still want to hear you tell me who you are." "Lady Murong, I am Xiao Luo, or you can call me Murong Huang, the Dark Lord. And now, in the Yizong world, I am called Sumo," Sumo said. "Oh." Murong Haiching finally looked surprised. "Sumo, you're not from this world? You are Xiao Luo's Yizong reincarnation avatar?" "That's right." Sumo nodded before she cupped her fists towards Murong Haiching. "Miss Murong, it's been a long time. I never expected that we would actually meet again in such a manner after the 3 dimensions were shattered." "Huh?" Murong Haiching cupped his fists towards Sumo, Demon King. "Although I am of the Azure Sea lineage, but back then you died in battle for the Milky Way, it was indeed worthy of respect. Unfortunately, I did not see you in the Yizong world. I really want to know, how did you also come to this world?" When Sumo heard this, she gave a simple explanation of the process. As Murong Haiching listened, he sometimes frowned and sometimes smiled bitterly. Finally, Murong Haiching sighed softly. "Congratulations, Demon King, for advancing to a Lotus Knight. No matter what, becoming a Lotus Knight is still very important. If you can say my senior brother, then there is still hope for restoring the Milky Way. Miss Murong, how did you discover the Southern Abyss Sea? And how did you enter this world?" Sumo asked. "When the Milky Way was destroyed, I was separated from Master. Afterwards, I completed my reincarnation awakening in a small world in the Yizong. Since then, I have been searching for my Master. I once went to the Pure Land world, and there I accepted a disciple called Guyu. I have seen Guyu," Sumo said. "Now, she is still in the Pure Land star field. I have searched for Master for tens of thousands of years. Afterwards, I came to the Glaze world. Actually, it was not me who discovered the Southern Abyss Sea, but the Southern Abyss Sea that discovered me. The first time, I was swept in by an unknown force, and then sent out by the unknown force. At that time, I did not know that this was the Southern Abyss Sea. Afterwards, I came to the cloud desolate planet and found Master's tomb. I also heard that the Southern Abyss Sea is also known as the small samsara sea, and that you can find the Tao shadows of the deceased here. So, I came here again based on my memory. This time, I directly saw the Southern Abyss Sea. I also met the Lotus Knight who ferried the boat. However, I did not know who he was. He also asked me if I was lost and gave me a lotus leaf. Afterwards, I saw a black whirlpool. So I came here. Lady Murong, your physical body is still in the Southern Abyss Sea. Sumo said. Oh, hee. Murong Haiqing could not help but laugh bitterly. If you did not tell me, I would not have known. No wonder my body in this world is always somewhat empty. Originally, I thought that it was because I did not die. That was why it was like this. Now, it seems that it is most likely because of cultivation. You are a Lotus Knight. You can enter with your physical body. However, I am only in the honorable realm, so I cannot. Right now, my body is half real and half empty. Lady Murong, how long have you been in this world? Sumo asked. I do not know. Murong Haiqing shook her head lightly. At the beginning, I still remember the years. Afterwards, I no longer remember, because the time here is definitely different from the outside world. This is almost an oceanic, desolate, divine continent. However, everyone does not recognize me. Back then, I once carved on the sacred mountain. Time passes, things remain the same, but people have changed. But now, it seems that things are different, and people are different. Those old friends in front of me are not the people from back then. They do not have any memories of the past at all. Murong Haiqing laughed helplessly, then suddenly stretched out his hand and pointed. Demon King, look. Sumo looked in the direction that Murong Haiqing was pointing. A red sun was rising from the sea of bitterness. The red sun rose from the east, and the fog gradually thinned. Within the immortal fog, there were many illusions, as if they were real and illusory, as if it was a fairyland. Gradually, all the fog dissipated. A wisp of red clouds slowly dispersed. That sun had finally dominated everything. Sunrise above the sea. Sumo's gaze was very calm, because to him, this was not a beautiful scene at all. As long as he was willing, he could create such a world, and it could be even more beautiful than this. Lady Murong, could it be that you watch the sunrise here every day? Sumo frowned and asked. Yes. Murong Haiqing nodded, then smiled and said, in the eyes of the Demon King, this sunrise should be nothing to see, right? Indeed, there is nothing to see. Sumo said, Demon King, your time in this world is short. If you were like me, after staying for who knows how long, you would really appreciate the beauty of this sunrise and have a deep understanding. Oh, Sumo frowned, because she knew that Murong Haiqing's words had a deeper meaning. Actually, the sunrise every day is the same, but it is not the same. Murong Haiqing said, just like the one Muron and Yanjiang that you have already met. Actually, they're still them, but in this world, they have walked on a different path of life than we know. Hearing Murong Haiqing's words, Sumo couldn't help but nod. Demon King, let's go. Murong Haiqing said, I will bring you to see someone. You'll understand more. Chapter 10:13. There were many islands on the Sea of Bitterness. Among them, the most famous island was naturally the carefree island of the Paradise Earth lineage. However, Murong Haiqing did not bring Sumo to Carefree Island, but in another direction. It was in the depths of the Sea of Bitterness. It was an island that Sumo had never been to before. Amidst the vast clouds, there was an island called Qingdao. The island was shaped like a long boat, with both ends slightly pointed. It was about 100 miles long, and the widest part was about 30 miles. It was an island that was neither big nor small. However, the Sea of Bitterness was vast, and it was like a small boat on the Sea of Bitterness. What is this place? Sumo asked. The locals call it Tianqing Qingdao, because there are many bamboo forests on this island. From afar, this island is completely green. Murong Haiqing said, actually, back then, there was also this island on the Sea of Bitterness of the Three Realms. However, most people don't know about it. It is in the opposite direction of the Paradise Earth's Carefree Island. Now, who lives on the island? Who are you bringing me to see? Sumo said, there are many people living on this island. Similarly, immortals and mortals live together. However, there are some people that you don't know. Follow me, and you'll know who you're going to see in a while. Murong Haiching brought Sumo and landed on the island. The place where they landed was a Colonel Murong Haiching brought Sumo around a mountain pass, and a small village suddenly appeared in front of them. The village was not big, and it looked like there were only 30 to 40 families. All of the families were built according to the mountain. There were bamboo fences and all sorts of bamboo houses. 30 to 40 families were scattered within a radius of 7 to 8 miles. It was a bit messy, but there was an indescribable beauty to it. This village is called Longevity Village. Murong Haiching said, Longevity Village? Sumo chuckled. This name is filled with the aura of the mortal world. Indeed, Murong Haiching said. However, the people in the village were probably not ordinary people in the Yizong world. Otherwise, they wouldn't have appeared here. Sumo nodded. Haiching is here. At this time, an old woman walked toward them. She was about 60 or 70 years old and was dressed in plain clothes. His clothes had already been washed white. When she saw Murong Haiching, she smiled and greeted him. Hello, Annie Zhang. Murong Haiching changed his cold demeanor and smiled warmly. Are you preparing to go fishing? That's right. My old man always craves the happy fish of the bitter sea, so I have to go out to sea when I have nothing to do. Although Auntie Zhang grumbled, her face was full of smiles. Happy fish are no longer fresh after 6 hours out of the bitter sea, so I have to go there every few days. In fact, Murong Haiching already knew about these things. Auntie Zhang's words seemed to be for Sumo to hear. My Uncle Zhang has good food, Murong Haiching said. The main thing is that he found a good wife. That's true. Auntie Zhang was not modest and said proudly, having me is his good fortune in several lifetimes. Haiching, you should go. Your godfather and godmother were talking about you yesterday. They said they got a few cloud rabbits and are waiting for you to eat them. Hurry up and go. With that, the old woman nodded at Sumo as a greeting and hurried away. It seemed that she was not afraid that Murong Haiching would be anxious, but rather she was anxious to go fishing. Listening to the conversation between the two, Sumo couldn't help but be stunned, because the old woman was in the undead realm. Her realm was exactly the same as when Muron's. Then, Sumo saw the old woman went straight to the seaside and directly soared into the sky. This Annie Zhang should be the reflection of a great cultivator. Unfortunately, I also don't know her background. My old man is now immortal, but Annie Zhang always listens to him. That old man is ugly and has a bad temper. However, Annie Zhang liked to serve the old man so well. Hee. Murong Haiching sighed. Everything really has its vanquisher. This world is really interesting. Sumo didn't know what to say and could only faintly laugh. At that moment, Sumo only felt that this village was full of the smoke and fire of the world, and there was a kind of special smell. They continued to walk forward. Along the way, Sumo unexpectedly met a group of married couples who were fighting. They all looked to be in their 20s. The woman was tall and burly, looking like a shrew. She raised a kitchen knife and chased after her husband. But she couldn't catch up, because she was immortal, but her husband was a deity-burying cultivator. He was a level higher than when Muron and the old woman from before. The male cultivator was elegant and handsome, looking like a talent. Unfortunately, he was chased around the courtyard by his wife. The woman was so tired that she was panting. Finally, she sat on a green rock, holding the knife, and looked at the male cultivator. Big brotherly, just let sister-in-law slash you a few times. Murong Haiching laughed and shouted, Anyway, you have an immortal body, and you're not afraid of being slashed. Huh? AI. Big brotherly waved his hand at Murong Haiching. Miss Haiching, you don't know. Your sister-in-law is tired of directly slashing me. Today, she insisted that I run, and then chased after her, saying that it would give me a sense of accomplishment. She even asked me to stop and wait for her. It's so hard to be a good man. Murong Haiching smiled and said nothing, because she had seen this kind of scene too many times. Every time, Murong Haiqing felt different. Surnamed Li, don't run. At this time, the fierce woman regained her strength, raised the knife again, and rushed toward Big Brother Li. Big Brother Li shook his head helplessly and ran with her again. As he ran, he shouted, "Help! Help me!" Unfortunately, the people in the village were not surprised at all. The couple was having a good time, and no one thought it was noisy. Sumo looked at the couple in a daze. In her opinion, they were a pair of lunatics. Everyone has their own fun. Murong Haiqing seemed to know what Sumo was thinking. That Big Brother Li is a blacksmith. But every day, he mainly makes kitchen knives. Make kitchen knives? For what? Sumo asked. For his wife. Murong Haiqing said. Cut him. Sumo laughed. That's right. Murong Haiqing said. That's their daily routine. I don't know how many good kitchen knives have been cut. At most, there's only one knife every 3 days. Why are they like this? Sumo puzzledly asked. Who knows? Murong Haiqing helplessly shook his head. Probably, they think it's interesting. Murong Haiqing really did not know why. Now the people in this world have no memory of the past, but Murong Haiqing's imagination ran wild. Perhaps they owed each other in the previous life. In the eyes of outsiders, it was unreasonable, but they were at ease. Sumo was silent. He always felt that everything that he saw was not that simple. But he had not fully understood the true meaning of it. The place that Murong Haiqing wanted to go to was a family at the highest point. That bamboo building was almost built halfway up the mountain. Looking out from that bamboo building, one should be able to overlook the entire Fusho village. That was a position blessed by the heavens. Qing is here. At this time, someone spoke from the bamboo building. Sumo looked up and saw a middle-aged couple standing side by side at the window of the bamboo building. The male cultivator, dressed in green, and the female cultivator, dressed in white. Seeing their appearance, Sumo could not help but froze on the spot. Chapter 10:14. Shunlang in green and Lung Yu in white. They were the two people that Sumo never expected to see. In fact, when Aunt Zhang mentioned Murong Haiqing's godfather and godmother, Lung Yu also flashed across Sumo's mind. However, if Lung Yu was the godmother, then who was the godfather? Therefore, although Lung Yu had already fallen, Sumo still felt that it shouldn't be Lung Yu. As for Shunlang, no matter what, Sumo never thought of him. Because Shunlang was Wang Ju and Mo Lang. And Wang Ju and Mo Lang did not fall. He was in Luo Fan Town's Galaxy Village. According to Wang Yu, Wang Ju had long become a Lotus Knight. So, why would his Dao shadow appear here? However, Shunlang was standing in front of them alive. That was definitely Shunlang. Other than not wearing black, he was exactly the same as Mo Lang. They were originally the same person. Shunlang was in the Venerable Realm, while Lung Yu was in the Rebirth Realm. Shunlang was also the person with the highest realm that Sumo had seen in this world. However, according to what Sumo had seen so far, realm did not seem to have much meaning in this world. At this moment, Shunlang and Lung Yu were looking at Sumo and Murong Haiqing with a smile. Although they did not know Sumo, they were full of kindness to anyone who came to the village. Moreover, Sumo was someone that Murong Haiqing brought here. Demon King, how is it? Murong Haiqing secretly transmitted his voice to Sumo. You were shocked to see them. When I first saw them, I was several times more shocked than you. Mo Lang did not fall. Now, he is a Lotus Knight and is in Izong world, Sumo said. Previously, he had not mentioned Mo Lang to Murong Haiqing. Oh, hee. Murong Haiqing was not surprised to hear this. Instead, he smiled faintly. I thought of it. With martial uncle's talent, he definitely became a Lotus Knight long ago. It was all very interesting. It's very likely that my martial uncle severed his own body. Otherwise, it's impossible for Shunlang's Dao shadow to appear here. Those who appeared here should be people who died in Izong. Maybe that's the only explanation. Sumo nodded. Qing, why are you still not coming up? What are you guys mumbling about? Lung Yu urged. Oh, coming up now. Murong Haiqing smiled and said, my new friend. He said he brought you 2 jars of wine. I wonder if they're suitable. It is fate that brings us together, and those who come are guests. What's wrong with that? Shenlang said with a smile. Just in time, I hunted a few snow rabbits a few days ago. I'll have your godmother roast them later. It'll go well with the wine. All right. Murong Haiqing smiled. Then she brought Sumo and hurriedly walked 2 steps, finally arriving in front of the bamboo house. At this time, Shenlang and Linyu also came out to greet them. Esteemed guest, forgive me for not going out to greet you. Shenlang cupped his fists and spoke politely. He didn't have the slightest bit of unruly demonic boy. Lungyu, who was behind him, just nodded her head in greeting, gentle and dignified. Godfather, this is my friend Sumo. He just appeared not long ago, so he's not familiar with everything. Murong Haiqing said to Shenlang. Welcome, little brother Su. Shenlang said. When you first appeared, everyone was the same. Slowly, everything will be fine. Sumo greets 2 seniors. Sumo cupped her fists and saluted Shenlang and Lungyu. Please come inside. Shenlang let Sumo and Murong Haiqing enter the bamboo house. The interior of the bamboo house was clean and elegant. Although there weren't too many furniture furnishings, it was clean and tidy, quite a scholarly atmosphere. Because the entire east wall of the house was actually full of books. Bamboo slips, silk, paper, everything that should be there. It didn't look like an ordinary family in a village at all, but rather a scholarly family. In the middle of the house, there was a bamboo and wood tea table with a delicate tea set on it. Qing, where have you been these days? Shenlang led Sumo and Murong Haiqing to take a seat and then asked. I went to Green Plains and then directly went to the southern desert. Murong Haiqing said. In Green Plains, I found 2 ancient books and brought them back for you. Oh, Shenlang's eyes flashed with brilliance. What ancient books? Let me see. One is a medical book, and the other is an ancient painting collection. With that, Murong Haiqing took out 2 somewhat yellowed, thread-bound ancient books from his bosom. Sumo swept them with her divine sense. In Sumo's view, those 2 ancient books were almost worthless. The so-called medical books basically recorded the prescriptions of mortals to treat illnesses. Those diseases, the most basic cultivator pills could cure them, and cultivators would not get those diseases. As for those ancient paintings, Sumo didn't take a fancy to them at all, because those were all mortal things. There was no immortal charm at all. Good book, good book. However, Shenlang was very excited holding the book in his hand. At that moment, he was like a great cultivator who had obtained a kind of magical cultivation method. As long as Godfather likes it. Murong Haiqing smiled happily and then turned to Lungyu. Godmother, I also brought something for you. Murong Haiqing took out a small cloth bag from his bosom. What is it? Lungyu asked. Seeds. Murong Haiqing said. These are the latest vegetables and fruits in Limitless City. You can plant them in the open space on a mountainside and eat the freshest vegetables. Qinger is really thoughtful. Lungyu took the small cloth bag with a smile and treasured it into a wooden cabinet in the house. Sumo secretly frowned. Those seeds were not immortal seeds at all, but the most common fruit and vegetable seeds of a farmer. Lungyu was in the rebirth realm. If she wanted it, she could get it with just a thought. However, she insisted on plowing in spring and planting in autumn. This made Sumo very puzzled. Murong Haiqing looked at Sumo and smiled faintly. In fact, she could guess what Sumo was thinking. Because when she first saw Shenlang and Lungyu's living conditions, she had the same thought as Sumo. But later, she finally understood. For Sumo to understand, there was a process. Lungyu greeted and went to the kitchen to prepare food. Murong Haiqing also went to help. Shenlang and Sumo chatted casually. Shenlang was the only person who became a venerable alone in the post-venerable era of the 3 realms. His talent in all aspects was absolutely comparable to the venerables of the ancient times. However, he and Sumo chatted about mortal trifles and did not talk about cultivation at all. The many topics made Sumo very uncomfortable. Moreover, there were many things that Sumo was not very clear about. For example, how to find snow rabbits in the bamboo forest. Because snow rabbits were very cunning. If it was Sumo, of course, with a sweep of her divine sense, she would naturally be able to catch as many as she wanted. However, Shunlang observed footprints, placed bait, set traps, and so on. This made Sumo not know whether to laugh or cry in her heart. However, Shunlang was very serious about it and enjoyed it. When talking about those mortal matters, Shunlang's eyes were filled with brilliance. After a while, the smell of barbecued meat wafted out from the kitchen. Looking again, Murong Haiching wore an apron and held a large bamboo plate in his hand. On the plate, there were a few exquisite dishes and a pot of wine. In the middle of the plate, there were 2 roasted snow rabbits that were crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. The snow rabbits were twice the size of ordinary rabbits, but they were not spiritual food. However, that fragrance went straight to the nostrils. That fragrance was completely different from spiritual food. That kind of fragrance was almost not in Sumo's memory. That was the smell of the mortal world. However, Sumo could not help but feel shocked and seem to understand something. Chapter 10:15. The snow rabbit meat was very fragrant and delicious. In fact, Sumo had not eaten that kind of delicacy for a long time. Or it could be said that Sumo had never tasted that kind of taste from food before, because it was not the taste of the food itself, but the smell of the mortal world. Murong Haiching only took a pot of wine, so Sumo and Shunlang naturally finished it in a few mouthfuls. Thus, Sumo directly took out 2 pots of 7 Stars Bitter Dew from her storage bag. That was specially brewed by Wu later on. 7 Stars Bitter Dew was the best quality wine. But Shunlang only took a sip before he frowned and looked at Sumo. Immortal wine? Sumo naturally nodded her head. Not good. Shunlang waved his hand and then said to Murong Haiching, Chinga, you better take out your godmother's green Aunt New wine. I am not used to drinking this immortal wine. All right. Murong Haiching smiled as he looked at Sumo. It seemed like she already knew that it would be like this. Saying that, Murong Haiching went into the back room and brought out a big pot of wine. Then she personally opened the seal and held a small wine pot. She first gently skimmed off the foam and then scooped out a small pot of wine for Shunlang. Seeing this, Shunlang then smiled. Little brother Su, don't blame me. I just like to drink this local wine. You drink your immortal wine, and I drink my local wine. Let's enjoy ourselves. Come. Shunlang raised his wine bowl and invited them to drink. Great waves rose in Sumo's heart, because she knew that Shunlang and Lung Yu in front of her had already lived to another realm. Although they still had immortal bodies, but in their hearts there was no longer any immortals. To senior, Sumo and Shunlang clinked their cups, and then they drank it in one gulp. Lung Yu and Murong Haiching did not drink. They simply ate a few mouthfuls of food and then silently accompanied Shunlang and Sumo. Murong Haiching was only responsible for pouring wine with a gentle smile on his face. That feeling was especially like the usual atmosphere of the mortal world. Shinro was the male host, while Sumo was the guest. Lung Yu was the mistress, and Murong Haiching was the obedient daughter. This drinking session was ordinary and beautiful. Unlike Sumo, when Muron, and Yanjiang, they didn't drink for an entire day and night. Instead, they knew when to stop. 2 snow rabbits and 4 side dishes were all eaten. Shunlang and Sumo were both tipsy. Then, Shunlang and Lung Yu went to the island to dig bamboo shoots. Shunlang carried a bamboo basket on his back, while Lung Yu carried a hoe. The husband and wife, one after the other, left the bamboo house and went down the mountain. Murong Haiching was in charge of tidying up everything. Then, she and Sumo stood on the bamboo building, looking at Kamuro and Linyu, who had already left the village. Is this their normal state? Sumo asked Murong Haiching. Yes. Before, it seemed to me that their lives were almost static. They work at sunrise and rest at sunrise. Every day, in a cycle, there is almost no change. Murong Haiching said. What about now? Sumo asked again. Now, I know that in fact, their days are new every day. Murong Haiching smiled. It's just like the sunrise I see on the bitter sea every day. It's actually different. Oh, Sumo said. This is what you understand. It's just one of the things I understand. Murong Haiqing continued. If you stay in this world for a long time, you will find a lot of interesting things and understand a lot of things at the same time. How long ago did you find them? Sumo said. I don't remember very clearly, but it should be at least 1,700 or 1,800 years. Murong Haiqing said. That's not a short time. Sumo said. You came to find Master Lung Yu. When you found them, they were already husband and wife. Yes. Murong Haiqing nodded. They were born as husband and wife in this world. Born as husband and wife? Sumo was stunned and immediately said, You mean they were husband and wife when they appeared in this world? They appeared at the same time? Yes. Murong Haiqing said, That's what Master told me. They were husband and wife when they appeared. However, coming to Fusho village was something that happened later. Miss Haiqing, you came to the Southern Abyss Sea to find Lung Yu's Dao Shadow and then bring her back to reincarnation. However, after 1,700 or 1,800 years, why haven't you done anything? Sumo said, Did you stay here? Hee. Murong Haiqing shook his head and smiled. Demon King, I still have the lotus leaves with me. It shouldn't be a problem for me to go back. Previously, you said that you met the Dao Shadows of Wen Muron and Yanjiang. So, are you going to take them away? Sumo frowned and said, Actually, I'm not too sure whether I can really reincarnate them if I take them away. So, I'm still hesitating. What if they can reincarnate? Murong Haiqing said. Then I'll choose to take them away. Sumo said. Hee. Murong Haiqing nodded. Demon King, you should stay in this world for a few more days. I believe that you will change your mind in the end. Oh, Sumo smiled. Why? The people we want to reincarnate are actually the people closest to us, right? Am I right? Murong Haiqing said. Of course. Sumo said. We all want them to be happy and happy. Isn't that right? Murong Haiqing said. That's right. Sumo nodded. But what my master wants, even if I let her be reincarnated, I can't help her get it. In the Yizong world, my master chose not to cultivate because there was no point in cultivating. But in this world, she can. My master's lifelong wish is to be with Martial Uncle. Now she has him. So, why should I bring her to be reincarnated? Murong Haiqing looked at Sumo very seriously. Demon King, do you think I'm right? Sumo couldn't help but stare blankly. Because what Murong Haiqing said seemed to be right. Your Mr. One, was he happy when he was alive? Murong Haiqing asked again. This? Sumo frowned. In the Three Realms era, when Muron died a total of 2 times. The first time was in the Brahma Temple, where Wen Chu and Wu Chu died at the same time. The other time was in the Heaven Continent's Tianmu grassland, where the ancient 7 stars returned. Thinking back now, it seemed that he needed to die both times, but in Muron's heart, he always had the intention to die. At that time, in the Demon Continent's Azura world, although when Muron was resurrected, from then on, in Xiao Luo's view, when Muron was no longer the previous Mr. Wen. In fact, when Muron didn't want to be resurrected. Resurrection was too tiring. Once, when Muron's life was Tai Huang. But later, Xiao Luo's development became an unbearable weight in Wen Muron's life. Xiao Luo's pain, when Muron understood. But Xiao Luo couldn't understand Wen Muron's pain. It was like the pain of children in the eyes of their parents, but in the eyes of their children, the pain of their parents was often negligible. Sumo wanted to resurrect Wen Muron subconsciously, not for Mr. Wen, but for himself, because he hoped that Mr. Wen was still alive. But did Mr. Wen really want to return to the 3 realms or Yizong? Was he really happy? Murong Haiqing's question made Sumo speechless outside the bamboo house. Chapter 10:16. To Xiao Luo, Wen Muron was like a teacher and a father. There was no doubt about this. Therefore, from Sumo's point of view, she naturally hoped that Wen Muron would come back to life. However, life and death were always relative. Phew! Sumo let out a breath of turbid air. Miss Haiqing, you've been in this world for so long. So, do you really think that this is a real world and not an illusion? Hee. Murong Haiqing shook his head and laughed. Demon King, I've thought about this question. Like you, I once felt that this was an illusory world. After all, I'm half a soul. Moreover, the laws of this world are completely different from the Three Realms galaxy and also different from the Yizong realm. However, later on, I realized something. What did you realize? Sumo asked. The Lotus Ferryman once said that what was real and what was fake, and what was fake and what was real, how could there be a Tao shadow in the Southern Abyss Sea? Perhaps he meant that shadows didn't exist at all. Actually, who could tell what was real and what was fake? Murong Haiqing sighed softly. 300 years ago, one day, my master told me that she had a dream. She dreamt that she was in a place called the Three Realms, and that she was a descendant of the ancient vast seas, guarding a place called the Three Realms Sacred Mountain. My martial uncle fell in love with a woman called Huan Hua, and she lived a miserable life. Murong Haiqing smiled bitterly. That wasn't a dream. Wasn't that the past? Sumo said. That's right. Murong Haiqing nodded. From our point of view, it was all in the past. It was something that had really happened in the past. However, to my current godmother, it was a dream. As I said earlier, who could tell which was real and which was fake? Murong Haiqing said, to my current godmother, she was very glad that the Three Realms was a dream. That was enough. She said that if that dream was real, it would be too painful. Demon King, do you understand? Murong Haiqing looked at Sumo and said, this is why I've been here for 1,700 years. You don't want to take away Lung Yu's reflection anymore, right? Sumo said, yes. Murong Haiqing nodded slowly, because the longer I stay here, the more I feel that everything here is the best arrangement. I didn't know Annie Zhang's past, nor did I know Brother Li's past. However, judging from my master's past, everything here is definitely better than their past. Annie Zhang is willing to be scolded often, and she even goes to the bitter sea to fish for Uncle Zhang. Brother Li had been slashed by his fierce wife, but he had been using it as a knife. We don't understand, but there must be a reason why they enjoy it. We don't even know the hardships of their past lives. Master, Uncle Master, now they're my godparents. They live the life they most wanted to live. This is impossible in both the Three Realms and Yizong. What about you? Sumo asked again. Me? Murong Haiqing was stunned. She seemed to have never thought about this question. Then she smiled indifferently. Where Master is home. In that world, it's all the same. Master and I have always depended on each other for survival. Murong Haiqing's answer made Sumo silent for a long time. After a long time, Sumo let out a long sigh. Everything is like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, and a shadow like dew or lightning. It should be seen as such. Miss Haiqing, I think you're right. The night was as cold as water. At dusk, Shunlang and Lung Yu returned with a full load. They not only dug a lot of bamboo shoots, but also hunted 2 pheasants. Sumo saw that their clothes were a little dirty. That was unimaginable for a great cultivator. It seemed that pheasants were not easy to hunt. However, their faces were full of joy. Murong Haiqing cooked again and made a table of good food. Everyone sat around the table and chatted about interesting things. In fact, that was the so-called life, the so-called family ties. After the meal, Shunlang and Lung Yu went to bed early. For them, this was an ordinary but fulfilling day. Tomorrow, there will be sunrise and a new day. Miss Haiqing, I have to leave. Outside the bamboo house, Sumo cupped her fist to Murong Haiqing. Are you going to leave here and return to the Yizong world? Murong Haiqing asked. Not for the time being. Sumo shook her head. I still have to find someone. Who? Murong Haiqing said. Xiao Huang. Sumo said, he fell in the Yizong world. I didn't know if his Tao shadow existed in this world. I want to find him. Murong Haiqing nodded. There should be. Although this place looks like the Three Realms, I feel that many cultivators might not be from the Three Realms. It seems that anyone can appear in this world. Then, are you going to take him away? Depends on the situation. Sumo did not know what to do now. Perhaps he wanted to see if Xiao Huang was doing well. After all, Xiao Huang was not the same as the others. Yu Luo did not die and was still in the Yizong world. Therefore, there should not be Yu Luo in this world. Miss Haiqing, are you really not going back? Sumo asked Morong Haiching. At least, I have no plans to leave at the moment. Morong Haiching said. That's good too. Sumo nodded. Then I will leave. With that, Sumo turned to leave. Demon King. Morong Haiching suddenly called out to Sumo. Miss Haiching, is there anything else? Sumo said. Demon King, if you return to the Izong world and rescue my senior brother, then please think of a way to send me a message. Morong Haiching smiled bitterly. Although I'm already at the Venerable Realm, I am nothing in the Izong world. Therefore, I will leave my senior brother's matter to you. Sumo smiled and said, Miss Haiching, don't worry. I'm duty-bound to save AMU. I will definitely bring you the best news. Morong Haiching smiled and then bowed deeply to Sumo. Thank you, Demon King. Farewell. Sumo nodded. Then, with a movement of his body, he disappeared. In the void, Sumo looked down at the sea of bitterness. Tianqing Island was just a black dot on the sea of bitterness. Longevity Village was not visible at all. However, Sumo understood that they all carried the happiness of some people. Everything was the best arrangement. Morong Haiching was right. Therefore, Sumo did not disturb this quiet little village, but directly left the sea of bitterness. Sumo also did not choose to return to the northern wilderness, wondrous Cloud City. Instead, he sat cross-legged in the void and released the 3,000 purple puppets. Tonight, find Xiao Huang, Sumo said in a deep voice. Who? The 3,000 puppets received the order and instantly dispersed. In the void, Sumo sat with his eyes closed. His divine sense and the 3,000 puppets were completely connected. 2 hours. Sumo suddenly opened his eyes. This time, it was much faster than finding Morong Haiching. Xiao Huang was in the Green Plains. Chapter 1017. The Green Plains was the largest region in the desolate sea continent. In the past, the Green Plains had the Yuan, Miao, and Dongfang families. Now, it was unknown if there were any left. However, that was not what Sumo was concerned about. At this moment, Sumo was standing above a large river in the Green Plains. On both sides of the river was an endless plain. Not far from the river was a small village. A purple-clothed puppet stood outside the village, motionless. Its gaze was locked on a plum forest not far away. In the middle of the plum forest, there was an especially lush and tall plum tree. Under the plum tree, there was a large green stone. The green stone was more than 10 feet tall and 4 to 5 feet wide, like a stone bed. On it, there was a 17 to 18-year-old youth. He was dressed in ordinary peasant clothes, with his sleeves and trousers rolled up. At this moment, he was sleeping soundly, his breathing steady. Xiao Huang. Sumo couldn't help but chuckle, and then he withdrew the puppet with a command in his heart. The other puppets on the desolate sea continent also returned to him. Then, Sumo walked towards the plum forest. Thinking about it, Sumo had not seen Xiao Huang for a long time. The last time he saw Xiao Huang was during the Great Astral Tribulation. At that time, Xiao Huang never returned. After that, Sumo only saw a portion of Xiao Huang's memories in the desolate demon shadow. Sumo walked gently to Xiao Huang. He could not bear to disturb Xiao Huang. At this moment, Xiao Huang's face still seemed to have a trace of childishness. There was even soil on his hands. Next to the green stone, there were hoes, buckets, shovels, and other tools. Sumo looked left and right. There seemed to be a plum tree that had just been planted not far away. Mortal. The current Xiao Huang was a mortal and seemed to be a hard-working gardener. From the looks of it, this large plum forest seemed to be planted by him. Those plum trees grew extremely strong. A faint plum fragrance wafted through the entire village. Not bad. Sumo nodded with a smile. This place actually had a bit of a plum blossom house flavor. Back then, Xiao Huang grew up in the plum blossom house. Sumo did not wake Xiao Huang up, because he saw Xiao Huang sleeping soundly with a beautiful smile on his face. However, when Sumo looked left and right and then turned around, he realized that Xiao Huang was already awake. Seeing Sumo, Xiao Huang was slightly taken aback. That was because the person in front of him wasn't someone from the village. so he didn't know him. Why did this person suddenly appear in his Merlin in the middle of the night? Xiao Huang was about to ask. However, Sumo smiled and said, "Did I disturb your sweet dream?" "Huh? No." Xiao Huang seemed a little embarrassed, as if Sumo knew about his dream. "You are? I'm just a passerby." Sumo said, "I saw a beautiful plum forest, so I came down to take a look." "Are you a cultivator?" Xiao Huang asked. Sumo nodded. "I'm a grand cultivator." "That's great." Xiao Huang cast an envious look at Sumo. "Oh." Xiao Huang's answer and expression surprised Sumo, because his expression was different from when Yuan, Yanjiang, Shunlang, and Lung Yu. Xiao Huang seemed to be full of yearning for cultivators. "Why is it great? Aren't we all born as mortals?" "Born as immortals?" Sumo asked. "Yes." Xiao Huang listened to Sumo's words, as if he had suffered a blow, and nodded unhappily. "Indeed. But I wish I was born as a cultivator. Unfortunately, I'm not. I'm just a gardener." "Is being a gardener not good?" Sumo smiled. "Not good," Xiao Huang said. "Oh, why?" Sumo's heart lit up. "Hee hee." Xiao Huang scratched his head, and then gave up a spot on the blue stone. "Senior, please sit." Sumo did not stand on ceremony, and directly sat next to Xiao Huang. At that moment, Sumo felt very good, because he could not remember the last time he sat side by side with Xiao Huang like this. That year, was Xiao Huang 5 years old or 6 years old? Father and son, very interesting, because when the son grows up, many times they prefer to sit opposite you and not by your side. "Gardener, why is it bad?" Sumo asked. "Well," Xiao Huang pondered for a moment, and then said shyly, "Actually, it's not that being a gardener is bad. I'm a gardener, and I like to plant plum blossoms. Senior, look, all the plum trees here are planted by me." Xiao Huang pointed to the surroundings. "Yes." Sumo nodded and smiled. "This plum forest is really good, which means that you're a good gardener. Plum trees are all spiritual." "That's right." Xiao Huang smiled and pointed to the largest plum tree beside him. "The plum tree behind us is the most spiritual and grows the fastest. The people in the village all say that I planted a divine plum tree. Sometimes I like to chat with the plum trees. I feel that they can understand my words. I also understand them." "Oh? Hee hee." Sumo smiled and did not say anything. "But I still hope that I'm not just a gardener. I prefer the me in my dreams." Xiao Huang sighed. "Oh, the you in your dreams?" Sumo's heart moved, and then asked with a smile, "What do you look like in your dreams?" "In my dreams, I can fly. I can call the wind and summon the rain." Of course, Xiao Huang paused for a moment, and then said firmly, "In my dreams, there are painful things, but I believe that all the pain will pass." Sumo smiled. "In your dreams, you are a cultivator?" "Yes." Xiao Huang lowered his head and looked at the mud on his hands. "But I know that's a dream. It's not real. I'm just a gardener. If you could choose, would you give up being a gardener and become a cultivator?" Sumo asked again. "Of course." Xiao Huang did not hesitate. "But there are cultivators in this village. What do you think of their lives?" Sumo's divine sense swept through the small village. There were indeed cultivators in the village, but they were basically cultivators of the mortal realm. "Them." Xiao Huang shook his head. "If I were them, I would definitely not be in the village." "Then what are you going to do?" Sumo asked. "I will go find my dreams," Xiao Huang said with certainty. "Your dreams are very important to you?" Sumo asked. "Yes." Xiao Huang nodded his head. "Actually, I really hope that it's not a dream, but real." Sumo looked at Xiao Huang and said, "You are Xiao Huang?" "Huh?" Xiao Huang was stunned. "Senior, you just arrived here. How do you know my name?" "Of course I know." Sumo said, "I'm a great cultivator. I'm completely different from the cultivators in your village." "In your dreams, is there a girl named Yu Luo?" "She is the beautiful peacock princess." "Senior." Xiao Huang's eyes widened, and he suddenly stood up. "How do you know about my dreams?" Sumo still smiled, but did not answer Xiao Luo's question. Instead, she asked, "In your dreams, do you have parents?" "Yes," Xiao Huang said. My father is a great cultivator called Xiao Luo. My mother is a plum blossom spirit called Wu Er. Unfortunately, after I wake up from my dreams, I always forget what they look like. Of course, the other people in my dreams, I also forget them after I wake up. I only remember that there are many people. Xiao Huang's tone was somewhat self-blaming. Then what does Luo look like? Sumo asked. Very clear. Xiao Huang said. She is very beautiful. Sumo heard Xiao Huang's words and could not help but laugh bitterly. Silly child, Luo is indeed your obsession. In your heart, she is indeed more important than all living beings. You have forgotten everything, but you have not forgotten her. You should not be in this world. Chapter 10:18. Sumo's words caused Xiao Huang to be somewhat at a loss, because although he always had strange dreams, he did not know what it was all about. However, the phrase more important than all living beings made his heart tremble. In the dream, Xiao Huang remembered that he had said that sentence. To him, Luo was indeed more important than all living beings. Senior, what do you mean by saying that I should not be in this world? Xiao Huang asked. Sumo said, it means that you have a heart that pursues your dreams. You're different from the people in the village or even the entire desolate sea. You are not satisfied with your current life. You wish that everything is a dream, and dreams are the real existence. Am I right? Yes. Yes. Xiao Huang nodded. Xiao Huang, if I can make your dreams come true and make everything you wish for come true, then are you willing to go with me? Sumo asked. Dreams come true? Xiao Huang did not dare to believe Sumo's words. Dreams come true? Xiao Huang did not dare to believe Sumo's words. Yes, dreams come true. Sumo nodded. Senior, I don't study much. I'm just a gardener. Don't tease me. Xiao Huang laughed. In the village, there are many cultivators. They can also ride on the clouds, call the wind, and summon the rain. My Merlin begged them to give him rain. However, I have never heard of anyone who can make someone's dreams come true. I believe that you are also a great cultivator. However, I don't really believe that you can make my dreams come true. I'd better be an honest gardener and not daydream. Xiao Huang shook his head. Usually, I seem to dream a little too much. Sumo looked at Xiao Huang and laughed. Xiao Huang, it seems that I have to prove it to you. Only then will you believe me. Xiao Huang looked at Sumo without saying a word. However, his eyes said it all. Although Xiao Huang had some doubts about Sumo's words, but subconsciously, he naturally hoped that everything Sumo said was true. However, he really needed Sumo to prove it. Xiao Huang, look who this is. As she spoke, Sumo waved her hand, and a water mirror appeared in the air. In the water mirror, there was a black-robed woman. She was tall, had fair skin, and was extremely beautiful. The most special thing about her was that she had blue hair and a pair of eyes. Luo, Xiao Huang shouted, because that was the peacock princess of his dreams, Luo. Senior, how do you know what she looks like? Xiao Huang asked anxiously. Because I know her. Sumo said, Xiao Huang, actually you should be in a big dream right now. As for your dream, it is you from another world. Everything in the dream was real. I came from that world. Now, I only ask you, are you willing to return to that world, which is your dream? Which world has Luo? Xiao Huang wanted to confirm. Yes, Sumo said. She's been waiting for you. Actually, it's not just her. There are many important people who want you to go back. Right now, you're just a shadow. My parents are in that world. Xiao Huang asked again. Yes, Sumo smiled. He did not tell Xiao Huang his true identity, because that would lead to more topics. Good, Senior. Xiao Huang finally nodded. I am willing to return to that world. But what should I do? I'm only a gardener now. I don't have any magic power. Sumo laughed. You don't need to do anything, I'm here. As long as you are sure you want to go with me. I don't want you to have any regrets in this world. I have no regrets. Xiao Huang said, that dream has always been the world I yearn for. If it is real, I'm willing to go back. Good. Sumo's heart finally brightened a little, because Xiao Huang was different from when Muron, Shunlang, and the others. In other words, in this world, there are also joy and pain. Perhaps it depended on how your previous life was like. If your previous life was bitter, then you'll be happier in this world. But if you had too much joy or unfulfilled wishes in your previous life, then maybe you will have some expectations in this world. Xiao Huang, close your eyes, Sumo said. Xiao Huang nodded, then very cooperatively closed his eyes. At this moment, his heart was filled with trust and intimacy towards Sumo. Whoosh! Sumo waved his hand, and with a gust of celestial wind, he kept Xiao Huang into his cosmos bag. Sumo saw it clearly. Xiao Huang was a shadow in the cosmos bag, a shadow. Now, Sumo was sure of his judgment. In this world, no matter if they were mortal cultivators, they were all shadows. As long as he brought this shadow back to hide, he should be able to let Xiao Huang reincarnate. Whoosh, whoosh. After Su Mo collected Xiao Huang, he saw that the tallest plum tree had withered in an instant, and the surrounding plum forest had also begun to turn into mist. Xiao Huang disappeared, as if he took the entire plum forest with him. Sigh. At this moment, Sumo heard a cultivator in the village sigh softly. Then, it was a conversation between two cultivators. Xiao Huang disappeared? Yes. That patch of plum forest is gone. Appear, disappear. That is the journey of our life. Don't many people disappear inadvertently? Luckily, there will be people who suddenly appear. Xiao Huang doesn't seem that old. What a pity, he was a good gardener. That was a conversation between two cultivators. Their words were like ordinary people's pity for the dead. Sumo couldn't help but be stunned. But he immediately understood that to the people of this world, Xiao Huang disappeared. That was a kind of death. So, life and death are relative. Sumo thought that he was letting Xiao Huang be reborn, while the people of the village thought that Xiao Huang was already dead. The cycle of life and death, the vast universe was just that interesting. Of course, at this time, Sumo would not think too much about it. After all, he had obtained the biggest harvest here. So, he kept Xiao Huang's shadow, his figure moved, and went straight to the northern wilderness Wondrous Cloud City. He still wanted to see Mr. One again. Wondrous Cloud City. Yanjiang's house. When Sumo returned, it was early morning. When Muron and Yanjiang woke up early and were chatting and drinking tea in the courtyard. Both of them were in good spirits. Sumo directly appeared in the courtyard, and both of them were slightly stunned. Oh, Brother Xiao, you didn't disappear? When Muron said happily, it's good that you didn't disappear. Yanjiang also said, but, brother, why didn't you say anything before you left? We thought you disappeared. I had some urgent matters to attend to before, making you too worried, Sumo said apologetically. No problem. When Muron smiled and said, since you are back today, let's go to the city together. Hearing this, Sumo waved his hand. Sir, I have a few questions to ask you. If you ask clearly, I still have something to do, so I have to leave. I'm afraid I can't accompany you. Oh? What questions do you have? Brother, feel free to ask. Seeing that Sumo was serious, when Muron also became serious. Sir, in this world, have you ever dreamed? Sumo looked at Muron and Yanjiang and asked very seriously. Chapter 1019. Dream? After hearing Sumo's question, Muron could not help but be slightly stunned. Then, he looked at Yanjiang and said, white-browed old man, the dream that little brother Xiao mentioned is the feeling you mentioned before, right? Ha! Of course it is. Yanjiang smiled and then said to Sumo, little brother Xiao, you don't have to ask him about the dream. He doesn't even know what a dream is because he never dreams. Never dreams? Sumo was slightly stunned when she heard this. Ha! Muron smiled and said, indeed, I never know what a dream feels like. Is it very similar to an illusion? A dream is not an illusion. Sumo smiled helplessly. This was because she felt that the one Muron here was truly free. He had completely let go of the past, so even the dream did not exist. Mr. Lian, do you dream? Sumo turned to ask Yanjiang. Me? Lianjin smiled and said, I'm a layman. Of course I dream. What dream? Sumo asked with a smile. Huh. When Muron said at this moment, he told me about this before. He always dreamed that he had a daughter named Wu-er, and she was a plum blossom spirit. He said that the woman in his dream was beautiful, cute, and extremely obedient. Ha! Yanjiang smiled embarrassedly and said, "The dream is a mess. Actually, I have forgotten many of the dreams. But the woman in the dream remembers." "Mr. Lien, you don't have a daughter?" Sumo asked. "He wants a daughter." When Muron smiled and said, "But he has to marry a wife first." "Ha! Mr. Lien, you have a big family and a big business. This is not a problem," Sumo said. "Ha!" Mr. Lien waved his hand and said with a smile, "Forget it. When I appeared, I was alone in this world. I saw that in the Northern Kingdom, many couples appear in pairs. I think that is my fate. Therefore, it was good to be alone. Once I disappear, there's nothing to worry about. Actually, wives and children are all debts. Either I owe them, or they owe me. So it's better not to." With that, Yanjiang sighed softly and took a sip of tea. Oh! Sumo pondered over Yanjiang's words, and she couldn't help but feel a wave of disappointment in her heart. Because for Yanjiang, it was true. At that moment, Sumo felt as if Yanjiang's state of mind still had the shadow of his previous life. What he couldn't let go of was Wu. However, Yanjiang was trying hard to forget his dream. One had no dreams, the other had forgotten dreams. Sumo understood that the two-star venerates before her were still willing to stay in this world. Or rather, this world was more suitable for them. Therefore, Sumo would not take them away, and there was no need for her to do so. The past, for them, was more bitter than happy. In this world, they lived happily and peacefully, and Sumo had also resolved a knot in his heart. "Sirs, please accept this humble one's bow." With that, Su-mo respectfully and deeply bowed to the two people. What? When Muron and Yanjiang were stunned. "Xiao Luo, farewell," Sumo said. After that, Sumo didn't say anything else. He directly left Yunchi City. In fact, he still had a lot of things to say to Muron and Yanjiang, but he understood that they had to part ways eventually. Sumo was not Murong Haiqing, and he couldn't stay in this world forever. There were many things waiting for him in the outside world. Therefore, Sumo chose to leave decisively. When Muron and Yanjiang were stunned, because Sumo's departure was a bit sudden. "This little brother is interesting. He came and went like the wind." Yanjiang laughed. When Muron looked at the place where Sumo disappeared and nodded, "White brow, I keep feeling that this little brother is a bit familiar, but I really can't remember when I saw him. Seeing him, I always feel a sense of familiarity. If you can't remember, then don't think about it." Yanjiang laughed. "In the entire desolate ocean world, you probably have seen many people. Who could remember every single person clearly? If you don't, then forget what you should forget." "That's true," when Muron laughed. Then, the two of them continued to drink tea and chat, completely returning to their previous state. Sumo left Yunchi City and went straight to the place where he appeared in this world. For this world, Sumo didn't need to stay much longer. When Muron was fine here, Xiao Huang, he had already brought back. Therefore, his goal for this trip to the Southern Abyss Sea was basically accomplished. Now, he just wanted to return to the surface of the Southern Abyss Sea and meet up with Wang Yu and Shunming to return to the glazed star field of the Yizong world and continue to look for AMU. In a few steps, Sumo arrived at the mountain peak where he appeared in this world. Originally, Sumo thought that he would have to go through a lot of trouble, because previously he saw the space-time black hole disappear with his own eyes. But now, when Sumo appeared at the mountain peak, he found that in the void of the mountain peak, there was already a black whirlpool opened. That was the door that Sumo came from. The space-time door was already opened. Sumo stood at the mountain peak and looked around the so-called desolate ocean divine continent once again. He couldn't help but let out a soft sigh. Regardless of whether it was real or fake, he had already been to this world. Then, Sumo's body jumped and directly flew into the black hole. Whoosh, whoosh. Everything was the reverse of the previous process. In an extremely deep and narrow black tunnel, Sumo felt that he was continuously rising from the top to the bottom. It felt like he was rushing from hell, to heaven. Sumo did not know how long it had been. Whoosh! He seemed to hear the sound of waves. Whoosh! Sumo's body seemed to be lifted up by an unknown force and directly rushed out of the black hole whirlpool. With a thought, Sumo directly floated in the southern abyss sea. His surroundings were vast and boundless. Strangely, Sumo did not see the small ice island before he entered the black hole whirlpool, nor did he see Murong Haiching's physical body. His own lotus platform was also not in the southern abyss sea. Sumo frowned. Around him was the vast sea. Without the coordinates, Sumo could not find the direction at all. He spread out his divine sense. But the southern abyss sea seemed boundless. Even as a lotus warrior, Sumo could not see everything in the southern abyss sea. At this moment, Sumo understood that the southern abyss sea was not really that big. Instead, the southern abyss sea had a magical power. That power could restrain the lotus warrior. At least, it could restrain him. Sumo was lost. Actually, at this moment, Sumo had a lotus leaf that was given to him by the lotus warrior ferryman. However, if he used that lotus leaf now, Wang Yu and Shunming were still in the southern abyss sea. Just as he was hesitating, Sumo suddenly saw a small boat riding the wind and breaking the waves not far away. It was none other than the lotus warrior ferryman Nan Yuan. Chapter 10:20. The sins of all living beings are deep and terrifying, bewitching the living and the dead. This body is hard to obtain, the wonderful method is hard to hear, but today I have heard. If I don't measure myself in this life, then where should I measure myself? The lotus ferryman continued to sing his Tao song, looking carefree and unfettered. His boat headed straight for Sumo and stopped not far away. Ferryman Senior. Sumo bowed to the ferryman. Hee. The lotus ferryman Nan Yuan smiled at Sumo. Why? Are you lost this time? I'm indeed lost. Sumo smiled bitterly. I was sucked into a black hole and entered another world. I believe that coming and going is the same path. However, when he came out, he couldn't see anything from before. So, I hope Senior can guide me. Come and go on the same path. Nan Yuan smiled and shook his head. Little brother, actually, you didn't come and go on the same path. It's just that you think it's a path, right? In the infinite worlds, there are no two paths that are exactly the same. Oh, Sumo was surprised. You are Sumo, the demon king of the three realms. You're a lotus soul. Am I right? Nan Yuan asked. That's right. Sumo nodded. Senior, how do you know my name? Hee. I'm a ferryman. The southern abyss sea traverses between worlds. It's not surprising that I know about you. Nan Yuan smiled. Previously, I warned you to stay away from the black vortex. Why didn't you listen? Because I met the friend I was looking for. I accidentally got sucked into the black vortex, Sumo said. Then what world did you go to, and what did you encounter? Nan Yuan asked. I've arrived at a world that seems both real and fake. I met some old acquaintances. However, those old friends don't remember me anymore. Sumo answered seriously. Hee. Nan Yuan smiled and said, Demon King. In fact, no matter which black hole you enter and what world you see, you will never be able to enter it. They really exist in the southern abyss sea. Oh, Sumo was confused. What do you mean, Senior? Vast universe nourishes all things, but the development of all things will scatter like light. However, normal creatures could only see one of the beams of light, and they would meet on this beam of light. The two of you call this ray of light, when you meet each other, the fate of a lifetime. But they didn't know that within the vast universe, there are many worlds, many lights. Every living being has a myriad of paths. Nan Yuan sat cross-legged on the small boat and slowly spoke as if he was giving a lecture. Senior, are you saying that within vast universe, there are countless overlapping space-times, and there are also countless copies of me? Sumo asked with a frown. You can understand it that way. Nan Yuan said. However, the two of you are in different space-time lines. Under normal circumstances, you would not meet each other. You are still the same you. Sumo frowned and tried to understand Nan Yuan's words. What Nan Yuan said was indeed beyond his usual understanding. He needed to re-examine this world. Then, the old friends I met before, are they from a different timeline? They don't know that there are countless of them. As you said before, I saw another ray of light from them. Sumo asked. Huh, that's right. Nan Yuan nodded. So, the worlds you see are all real. They're no different from your previous three-realm Star River and Izong world. You just broke into a world you shouldn't have entered. Aren't they the Tao shadows of Izong? Sumo asked again. Huh. Those who haven't entered the southern abyss say that there are Tao shadows of many worlds here. However, can I say that Izong is the Tao shadow of another world? Nan Yuan laughed. The truth is the same. Many lights, they're each other's Tao shadow. Sumo frowned and listened, not speaking. Demon King, no world can be changed, because from the moment it appears, it is already within the laws of vast universe. Nan Yuan said, but isn't the cultivation of us cultivators going against heaven? Sumo said, that is only the heaven we think of. Nan Yuan shook his head, because there is always a heaven beyond heaven. We think we're going against heaven, but we don't know that we only broke through one heaven. However, there are countless heavens. You broke through one, but there is still another. I heard that in the three realms, there was a cultivator named AMU. He wanted to break all karma. Then, he made the three realms immortal. However, what happened in the end? He failed. The three-realm Star River was swallowed by Izong World. Because Izong World is bigger than the three-realm Star River. Although you broke through the three realms, there is still Izong World. Taking a step back, even if one day you break through Izong World, there must be another heaven outside. There is always a heaven beyond heaven, and there is no end. Senior, what you mean is that we are making a pointless struggle. Sumo said, because we can never get rid of the shackles of heaven. We're just puppets. Our path has long been determined. It's just that within a few heavens. Huh. Nan Yuan smiled and nodded. That's right. This is the truth. Ha! Sumo couldn't help but sneer twice. Senior, I don't believe you. You don't believe me? Nan Yuan looked at Sumo and said, Demon King, why don't you believe me? What I said is the highest truth of vast universe, or vast universe's laws. Senior, it's not that I don't believe you, but I don't believe that vast universe's laws cannot be changed. Sumo said, I am not willing to be vast universe's puppet. You said that life is like light. Then, I think that some lights are longer and some are shorter. I am willing to let the light that I am and extend endlessly without end. Nan Yuan shook his head and smiled. Then you and AMU are the same. You both pursue eternal life. No, never living forever is not the most important thing. Sumo shook her head. The truth is, what I and AMU pursue is not to be controlled. We want to be the masters of our own lives. We don't want to be puppets. Demon King, you have reincarnated before, but you can no longer reincarnate. Do you understand? Nan Yuan asked. I know. Sumo nodded, because I'm already a Lotus Scholar. Lotus Scholars do not have reincarnation. That's right. Nan Yuan nodded. Below Lotus Scholar, you can still reincarnate in your own world. But once you enter the Lotus, there is no possibility of reincarnation. But Lotus Scholars do not have a lifespan limit. Sumo said. Yes. Nan Yuan said. Lotus Scholars do not have a lifespan limit. But it is not that Lotus Scholars cannot die. They can still fall. It is just that Lotus Scholars do not die easily. So, as long as you do not do something, you will not die. Your life can be endless. Huh. Sumo smiled and nodded. Then, she said sternly, Senior, I will not live only for myself. If death can solve many problems, then what's the harm in dying? In the infinite realms, the most frightening thing is that death can't solve. Back then, Songhai sacrificed himself to cause and effect and move the roulette. If one day I need to die so that the light of the three realms galaxy can continue, I am willing to die, and I will do it without hesitation. Hearing Sumo's words, Nan Yuan looked at Sumo and was speechless for a long time. He only said silently in his heart, Sherzuin, this lotus soul is indeed different. Chapter 1021. So what if it's life or death? Sumo's answer wasn't a spur-of-the-moment remark, but something he had thought about for a long time. Once, for the 3 realms of reincarnation, he wanted to fall into the roulette, but AMU didn't give him the chance. After the 3 realms were destroyed, Sumo was reborn in the Izong world. In fact, from the day Sumo was fully awakened, he had a sense of mission. He was reborn for the 3 realms of galaxy, not for someone. On his shoulders, he shouldered the responsibility of making the galaxy shine again. This was also the biggest motivation for Sumo to move forward, to return the 3 realms, to restore the galaxy. That was Sumo's belief. For this goal, he could give up everything, including his own life. As a high-level Lotus Knight, Nanyuan couldn't agree with this, or rather, he had long been indifferent to it, because Nanyuan had seen too much rebirth and destruction. In his view, the 3 realms and the Izong world were nothing more than the growth and withering of a lotus. They weren't as important as the Lotus Knight itself. Within the infinite worlds, almost no Lotus warriors would perish for the sake of a world. Instead, many Lotus warriors would destroy worlds one after another for their own sake. Nanyuan came here because he was worried that Sumo's Lotus wouldn't be complete. Because Lotus Knights often clung to life and death because they couldn't reincarnate anymore. Once they clung to it too much, it would become an inner demon. But Sumo didn't go through this process. He didn't care about life and death at all. What he pursued was the meaning and process of life, not endless and eternal. Demon King, maybe one day you will change. Nanyuan sighed and shook his head. Actually, there will be a world as long as you're here, so you don't have to cling to the 3 realms of galaxy. Senior, I used to think so too. But when your world is destroyed, you won't think that way anymore. Only the 3 realms of galaxy is my world. To Izong, I'm just a stranger in a foreign land. Actually, I'm a wanderer in Izong. Senior, if the Southern Abyss Sea is destroyed, what will you do? Sumo asked. The Southern Abyss Sea is destroyed? Nanyuan was slightly stunned, because he had never thought about this question. In his opinion, the Southern Abyss Sea would never be destroyed. If the Southern Abyss Sea is destroyed, then I will build another one. Nanyuan laughed. Hee hee. Sumo smiled and nodded. That's it. Then do you still want to turn Izong into a galaxy? Nanyuan frowned and asked. Why not? Sumo asked. Izong's rank is above the Star River. Nanyuan shook his head and said, That's why I can devour the 3 realms. It's almost impossible to devour the 3 realms. That's even harder than creating a new galaxy. Whether it's possible or not depends on what happens after we do it. Sumo smiled, then said in a deep voice, Moreover, since Izong chose to devour the Star River, then he should pay the corresponding price. Hee hee. Nanyuan gently tapped the fan in his hand. Demon King, regardless of whether you succeed or not, I admire your faith and courage. Thank you, Senior, Sumo said. Demon King, what did you bring out from the world just now? Nanyuan looked at Sumo with a smile that is not a smile. Oh, Sumo was also stunned, because he had brought Xiao Huang out. However, he placed him into his Cosmos bag. Could it be that the Lotus Ferryman could see through his Cosmos bag? One must know that his Cosmos bag can contain the Dharma Lotus Venerable level Yinbua. Senior, how did you know that I brought something out? Sumo asked with a smile. Hee hee. Nanyuan laughed. Demon King, actually the entire Southern Abyss Sea is under my jurisdiction. My real name is Nanyuan. Nanyuan is me. I am Nanyuan. I can see every drop of water in the Southern Abyss Sea clearly. Therefore, I naturally know what you're carrying on you. However, I do not know what it is. I brought back a shadow from the previous world. Sumo said honestly. Whose shadow? Nanyuan raised his eyebrows. My son's shadow, Sumo said. His name is Xiao Huang. After his reincarnation, he fell in a hidden world. I want to resurrect him. He came out with you voluntarily? Nanyuan asked. Actually, Nanyuan was just confirming. Because if it was not voluntary, Sumo would not be able to bring back a reflection through the Southern Abyss black hole. Completely voluntary, Sumo said. Demon King, you have to think clearly, Nan Yuan said. The so-called reincarnation of a reflection is just a speculation. In fact, there are very few reflections that are willing to leave their own world. It is as if someone suddenly told you, Demon King, everything you are now is a dream, and then brought you back to the real world. I estimate that you will definitely not go. At the same time, I have never heard of anyone using a reflection to reincarnate successfully in a different world. Demon King, I advise you to be careful, because once you fail, it is equivalent to killing your son with your own hands. After listening to Nan Yuan's words, Sumo slowly nodded. Senior's words, Sumo will remember. However, even if there's a risk of death, I think we will still choose this way. He is willing to go with me. I'm also willing to take him away. You are indeed father and son. Nan Yuan smiled and nodded. Actually, I should not have let you take away any reflection, because it is against the rules. However, I was entrusted by someone to help you, so I let you take it away. I hope everything will be as you wish. Thank you again, Senior. Sumo bowed to Nan Yuan. However, may I ask who entrusted you? One day you will know. Nan Yuan smiled and said, You are a person with a great opportunity. Otherwise, I would not appear in front of you again. Then I hope Senior can lead the way. I still need to find my companions. Sumo said, Demon King, please board my boat. I have come to pick you up. Otherwise, you will not be able to find the way. Nan Yuan made an inviting gesture. Okay. Sumo responded, and then his figure moved and directly landed on Nan Yuan's boat. Whoosh! Sumo landed on the boat and felt his body shaking slightly. At the same time, the scenery in his eyes had completely changed. Before, in Sumo's eyes, there was only the vast sea, which was boundless. But now, in his eyes, in addition to the sea, there were many black holes and whirlpools. Before, Sumo had only seen one black hole whirlpool. But now, there were dozens of black holes whirlpools within a few dozen miles around him. And Sumo spread out his divine sense on the boat and found that the Southern Abyss Sea had an end. However, it was more like a sphere that was constantly rolling. The Southern Abyss Sea rolls in the vast universe like this. It rolls through many worlds. Therefore, it has traces in many worlds. Every black hole that you see is actually connected to a world. Nan Yuan said, How many worlds does it connect to? Sumo asked. Countless. Nan Yuan said with a smile. In fact, even I do not know how many worlds it connects to. The vast universe is endless. The Southern Abyss is endless. The vast universe is endless. The Southern Abyss is endless. Sumo bowed his head and pondered these words. The boat suddenly stopped. Sumo looked up and saw the ice island where Murong Haiching's body was located. His lotus throne stopped above the ice island. Chapter 10:22. Different ships ferry different people. Nan Yuan's ship is an existence that goes everywhere in the Nan Yuan Sea. From the time Sumo boarded the ship to the time he saw the ice island, it was only a short while, but Sumo couldn't find the way before. Demon King, you've arrived. Nan Yuan looked at Sumo and smiled. Leaving from my ship, you will directly return to the Lotus platform, then leave the Nan Yuan Sea and return to Izong. Senior, will this Miss Murong's body always be here? Sumo looked at Murong Haiching's body on the ice island and asked. Everyone has a choice, and everyone has a place to return to. Nan Yuan nodded and said, She chose to live in that world, so her body will always be here. However, you don't have to worry. Her body will definitely be unharmed. If she wants to come back, she can come back anytime. Sumo replied, then cupped his fists towards Nan Yuan. Senior, I still have one more question. I don't know if you can answer it for me. Demon, please speak. Lord, please speak. Nan Yuan said. Sumo nodded. Then with a wave of his hand, he directly took out Wu Air from his Chinkoan pouch. The plum blossom sprite's eyes were slightly closed. Her breathing was even, as if she was asleep. Senior, this is my wife. Sumo said. Oh. Nan Yuan looked at Wu Air. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. Unfortunately, Sumo didn't catch this detail. His attention was all on Wu Er. Senior, she suffered a serious injury once. However, her injury has already been healed by me, but she is still unconscious. Senior, may I ask if you could see the reason? Sumo looked at Nan Yuan. She is a plum blossom sprite. Nan Yuan looked at Wu Er and frowned. Yes, Sumo said. Her divine soul is severely injured. Nan Yuan continued, because she has reincarnated too many times. Actually, every reincarnation, the divine soul needs to be reforged. Normally, in a reincarnation, we will forget our previous life. Only a great cultivator can complete the awakening. However, this awakening was a long process. Once a reincarnator was forcefully reincarnated without completing a true awakening, it would cause harm to his divine soul. And once this kind of damage accumulates and erupts, it will become what it is now. Senior, how many times has she reincarnated? Sumo asked with a frown. How many times? Nan Yuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. Demon King, I can't tell the exact number. I'm afraid she won't even remember when she wakes up, because there are too many. Senior, do you have a way to save me? Sumo asked. Within the infinite worlds, the only ones who can save us are ourselves. Nan Yuan smiled helplessly. Whether she can wake up or not depends on herself. Now, her soul was empty. That was because the memories of his many lives were all in chaos. She can only recover slowly. How long will that take? Sumo asked. I don't know, Nan Yuan said. When Sumo heard this, her expression instantly darkened. If Nan Yuan couldn't tell how long it had been, it meant that the problem was extremely serious. In such a situation, even if he brought Wu Er back to the Kuan Butterfly Star Sea, it would be useless. At this moment, Sumo remembered the few lines in the soul-storing cave abode. Immortal, immortal bone, immortal soul, immortal reincarnation, immortal heart. There is no limit in the heavens, only a king in the world of mortals. Also, he saw the inscription on Mu Jinghong's painting, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, void to void, nothingness to nothingness. 10,000 years of admiring the world of mortals, a lifetime of white bones. Did Wu Er really reincarnate for 10,000 lives? Sumo didn't dare to believe it. However, at this moment, Nan Yuan looked at Sumo and pondered for a moment. I can give you a handful of Nan Yuan water. Because my Nan Yuan water contains the chi of the infinite worlds, it may be able to help her recover. Oh, Sumo's eyes instantly lit up. Looking again, Nan Yuan waved his hand outside the ship and directly grabbed a handful of seawater. Then, he took out a bottle from his bosom and poured the Nan Yuan water into it. Nan Yuan handed the bottle to Sumo, and Sumo took it with both hands. Senior, how do I use this Nan Yuan water? Give her 1 drop every 100 years. Nan Yuan said. 1 drop every 100 years? Sumo couldn't help but be stunned. How long will it take? 10,000 drops of seawater. Nan Yuan said, it will take 1,000,000 years. After 1,000,000 years, she may wake up. This is the only way I can think of. Sumo was stunned for a moment, and then immediately bowed deeply to the Nan Yuan cultivator. Thank you, Senior. I won't drop a single drop. 1,000,000 years is nothing. Nan Yuan looked at Sumo and nodded with a smile, but he could only sigh in his heart. Demon King, I wish you good luck. You still have a lotus leaf on you. Once the lotus leaf leaves Nan Yuan, it can turn into a green boat. It is a top-grade lianbua, and it can help you travel and cultivate in the future. Take care. With that, Nan Yuan didn't wait for Sumo to say anything else, and directly waved his long sleeve. Whoosh, whoosh, Sumo only felt a mysterious light in front of him, and then everything around him became blurry. He once again lost consciousness. Nan Yuan sat on a small boat on the Nan Yuan Sea. He saw Sumo's lotus throne gradually disappear in the Nan Yuan Sea, and then he let out another long sigh. At this time, light and shadow fluctuated in the void. The cultivator wearing the wooden mask appeared once again. Master, Nan Yuan stood up and saluted. Disciple did not let you down. Sumo's life and death lotus intent originally had no flaws. I have already sent him out of the Nanyuan Sea. The masked cultivator nodded. But, Nanyuan, why did you lie to him in the end? Could it be that Master has a way to save that plum blossom sprite? Nanyuan's eyes flashed with a trace of hope. The masked cultivator, shook his head. Nanyuan, although we may be called gods in the eyes of some great cultivators, we ourselves know that we are not gods. Even the great lotus supremacy on White Mountain is not omnipotent. That little plum blossom's divine soul has already been consumed in many reincarnations. How could he be saved? Even the great lotus supremacy would be powerless to save him. That's right, Nanyuan sighed. It is precisely because of this that disciple gave him a handful of Nanyuan water. Although I know that the Nanyuan water can't help his divine soul recover, I still gave that Three Realms demon king hope. Seeing his sincerity, I couldn't bear to tell him the truth. The masked cultivator laughed lightly. Many lotus scholars say that Nanyuan is heartless, but now it seems that it may not be true. That lotus spirit is really different. He actually chose to die for the world and for the lotus. Nanyuan shook his head. The masked cultivator laughed. Nanyuan, you have stayed in the Nanyuan Sea for too long. I'm afraid there are some things that you do not understand. Do you still remember Luofan Town? Of course I remember. Nanyuan laughed. Master, didn't you come from Luofan Town? That's right. The masked cultivator laughed. In Luofan Town, there is a windmill village. I remember that I have mentioned it to you before. Windmill? Nanyuan said. Of course I remember. Their ancestral master was demoted from White Mountain, so Windmill has always wanted to return to White Mountain, but it lacked a person to complete it. Now we have that person, the masked cultivator said slowly. Sumo? Nanyuan looked at his master in shock. Chapter 1023. Hua. The sound of seawater entered Sumo's ears, mixed with the sound of two women's voices. Sumo, Demon King. The ones calling Sumo were naturally Wang Yu and Shun Ming. Sumo slowly opened his eyes. At this moment, he realized that he was standing upright on the lotus platform. Then, he saw the disappearing southern abyss sea in the distance. The starry sky around him returned to its previous emptiness. If not for Xiao Huang's reflection, the water of the southern abyss, and a special lotus leaf in the cosmos sack, Sumo would have thought that he had a long dream. The trip to the southern abyss, sea, was really like a dream, because he was completely beyond Sumo's understanding. Sumo, are you all right? Wang Yu asked. Demon King, what happened just now? Shen Ming asked. Just now? Sumo was stunned, because, in his mind, it should have been a few days and nights. Yes, Shen Ming said, previously, you instructed us to stay on the lotus platform and not go out. Then, you entered the southern abyss sea alone. In just a few breaths, you brought me back to Yizong world. It was simply a matter of a moment. Sumo, you must have experienced a lot, right? Wang Yu asked. Ming-er and I stood on the lotus platform. Maybe our time and space are different. Yes, Sumo nodded. Then, he briefly explained his experience in the southern abyss sea. Wang Yu and Shun Ming listened and frowned. There is a sky beyond the sky, and a world beyond the world. Wang Yu sighed. My father often said, the vast universe is boundless, and the forbidden map is endless. It seems that it is true. Sister, you said that the world is a ball of light. Then, will there be a cute me in another time and space? Shen Ming asked with interest. Wang Yu laughed dryly with an expressionless face. Ming-er, I guess I have you, but I don't know if you're cute or not. That you, apart from your appearance, is probably not you at all. Sigh. Shen Ming let out a long sigh. Since it's not me, then it's definitely not cute. I guess she doesn't know how to cook, or she doesn't cook well. Wang Yu rolled his eyes at her and didn't reply. Sumo, then has his senior sister Morong decided not to return? Wang Yu asked Sumo. Most likely, Sumo said. In this world, she doesn't care about anything except AMU. In that world, there's also Cold Jade, so naturally it's the best. Everything is the best arrangement. Wang Yu said to himself naturally. She recalled what Sumo had said to Murong Haiqing, then nodded lightly. Sumo and Shun Ming didn't say anything. Actually, Murong Haiqing was right. In that world, many people who didn't have a home to return to found a home, and many people who had regrets had no regrets. Wherever the heart was, the world was. Sumo, what should we do next? Wang Yu took a deep breath, then raised his spirits. Are we still going to look for my brother? Of course. Sumo nodded. We must find AMU, and this is our only mission now. Even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground in Glaze World, we must find AMU. Perhaps we'll meet Xing Fei, Han Bingyi, and the rest soon. All right. Wang Yu nodded heavily. She must find AMU. She had never wavered on this point. Shun Ming, who was beside her, also nodded. The 2 sisters had left the Galaxy Village to enter the Samsara cycle for AMU and Shun Yin. At this moment, Sumo took out the lotus leaf from her Chinquan bag. Whoosh! Once the lotus leaf appeared, it instantly turned into a 3-foot-long green flying boat. When the demonic boat was destroyed, Sumo had reforged this lotus platform. However, the lotus platform was only a venerable level Dharma treasure, and it couldn't be compared to the demonic boat. However, the green boat made from the lotus leaf given by Nanyuan was comparable to the demonic boat. This was because it was also a top-notch Lianbua. When the green boat appeared, Sumo discovered that there were 8 ancient words engraved on the side of the boat. A lotus leaf, the myriad realms boat, the boundless universe, you can roam freely. The myriad realms boat. Sumo didn't know if that was the name of the boat, but she named it after it. At this moment, she recalled everything that happened in the Nanyuan Sea. Although the Lotus Fairy Nanyuan wasn't in existence like the Lotus Venerable King, he was definitely a high-level Lotus Knight. Although Sumo was a Lotus Knight, she could only look up to Nanyuan. A leaf and a boat. Then how many lotus leaves did Nanyuan have? Sumo thought to herself. However, this was actually Sumo thinking too much. This was because not every lotus leaf of Nanyuan was a Lianbua. His lotus leaves were more of a guide. It was just that the lotus leaf in Sumo's hand was a little special. Even some lotus knights might not have a top-notch Lianbua. Nanyuan was definitely a high-level lotus knight, and he was good at building boats, so he had a top-notch green Lianbua boat. It could only be said that Sumo had her own opportunities and had the help of many benefactors. In any case, Sumo got another Lianbua, and it was exactly what she needed. Therefore, Sumo kept the lotus platform and landed on the Myriad Realms boat with Wang Yu and Shun Ming. We're going to find the next dark world, Sumo said. Wang Yu and Shun Ming nodded. With a single thought, Sumo set off on the green boat and headed straight for the depths of the Glaze world. Their target was the next dark world. Murong Haiqing's star map was already useless, as she only marked the interstellar space from the cloud desolate planet to the Nanyuan Sea. However, Sumo still had the Lucky Light star map. Although the Lucky Light star map didn't mark the dark world, with Sumo's current cultivation, she could already sense the existence of the dark world. The Nanyuan Sea was in the center of the Glaze White South Star region. Sumo and the others began their long interstellar journey. This was because Sumo almost didn't use space jumps in order to find in detail. In the blink of an eye, 100 years passed. During this time, Sumo gave Wu 2 drops of Nanyuan water. A drop 100 years ago, a drop 100 years later. Every drop of Nanyuan water melted in between Wu-er's eyebrows. Wu-er was still the same, without any signs of waking up. However, Sumo was already mentally prepared. He naturally had to drip it for 10,000 years. Now, Sumo, Wang Yu, and Shun Ming had already reached the border of the Glaze White South Star region. However, along the way, they actually didn't encounter a dark world. Interesting. Sumo laughed on the boat. I don't believe that half of the Glaze White South Star region doesn't have a dark world. It seems like someone intentionally hid them. The second swordsman has already died in your hands. Black Lotus must have reevaluated your combat power. So, I think the average dark world will definitely avoid you, Wang Yu said. So we didn't see it. This doesn't seem to be a good sign. Sumo smiled faintly. Perhaps they're preparing a big gift for us? That's really hard to say. Wang Yu nodded. This journey has been too peaceful. Sumo and Wang Yu analyzed the situation, while Ming had already fallen asleep on the boat. At this time, they had already left the glazed white South Star region and headed straight for the northern Blue Star region. However, suddenly, a star directly in front of them exploded without warning. At that moment, it was like an extremely brilliant firework. Chapter 10:24. The fireworks were dazzling, but it was death. Sumo, Wang Yu, and Ming were all stunned. This was because they hadn't noticed the star in front of them at all before this. In fact, the star was at least 1,000,000 miles away from them. However, the boundless shockwave was already heading straight for them. Sumo raised an eyebrow. He didn't know why the star would suddenly explode. The multicolored light was like a torrent of thousands of shooting stars. Fortunately, it was only an explosion at the peak of the rebirth realm. Then Sumo willed it. Whoosh! Thousands of red flowers scattered in front of the Myriad Realm's azure ship. The demonic ship was destroyed, but Sumo's blood rose was still there. Now, Sumo had fused a portion of the blood rose into the Myriad Realm's azure ship. At this moment, the blood rose dispersed. They formed a circular red shield in front of the Myriad Realm's azure ship. Sumo was already a Lotus scholar. The blood rose was one with Sumo, so it was only natural that it would be stronger. Now, unless it was the true power of the Lotus realm, it would be impossible to destroy the blood rose. Boom! Boom! The star that exploded was naturally not at the level of the Lotus realm. Thus, all of the power of the star explosion that came into contact with the red flower shield was dispersed and scattered into the universe. Under Sumo's control, the Myriad Realm's azure ship pierced the star like a green sword. Sumo felt that the star's explosion was a little strange. He scanned the star map that Ji Guang had left behind, but found that there shouldn't be any stars within 1,000,000 miles of where they were. The star that exploded seemed to have appeared out of thin air. The Myriad Realm's azure ship headed straight for the star that had exploded. However, at this moment, Sumo's mind went on alert. This was because, moments after the explosion, Sumo felt the temperature of the surrounding universe suddenly change. Dark realm energy. Wang Yu and Ming both felt the change in the interstellar aura. Sumo, dark realm. Wang Yu said in a low voice. At this time, Wang Yu's ghost was fully activated. In his eyes, there were actually 9 black lotuses reflected in them. They surrounded Sumo's ship in units of millions of miles. The 9 lotuses were the 9 great dark worlds. The star explosion just now was more like a signal. Previously, Sumo did not encounter a single dark world in the past 100 years. It seemed that there was indeed a man-made force that gathered some of the dark worlds in this star region that spanned tens of thousands of miles. Sumo's prediction was right. Black Lotus had really prepared a big gift for Sumo. Hua. Within the interstellar space, undercurrents were surging. Boundless power turned this star field into a sea of darkness. With a thought from Sumo, the Myriad Realm's azure ship stopped in the galaxy. Sumo's eyes were as black as ink. He also saw those 9 black lotuses. At the same time, each of the 9 black lotuses had a cultivator standing on it. All of them wore purple robes and had purple hoods on their heads. It was impossible to see their faces clearly. They were dressed like the soulless Taoist of the 3 realms. 9 peak stage supremacy cultivators. Sumo could not help but frown. However, he did not feel that his opponents were terrifying, but that they were too weak. That was because Sumo could already fight ordinary Lotus warriors when he was a peak stage supremacy cultivator. What was the use of 9 peak stage supremacy cultivators? However, Sumo immediately realized that the problem was not that simple. That was because the 9 peak stage supremacy cultivators were emitting rays of black light. The rays of black light were completely connected to each other. The Dark World Formation. Sumo raised his brows again. It was indeed a big gift. At the same time, Sumo acutely sensed that the 9 peak stage supremacy cultivators were not ordinary cultivators. Puppets? Divine puppets. If Sumo had not been in the Lotus world, he would not have been able to see through their true identities. The 9 peak stage supremacy cultivators were uniform. In fact, they had independent consciousness, but they were controlled by one person at the same time. Therefore, they were the best of the best puppets, divine puppets. There was an even more powerful cultivator behind them. Moreover, that person must be a Lotus warrior. That was because only a Lotus warrior could control such divine puppets. At that thought, Sumo patted her storage bag without hesitation. The little white pig jumped out from inside. It had been sleeping and did not know what was happening. It looked at everything with a dumbfounded expression. Then, the dragon, elephant, soul-devouring beast's gaze sharpened. The little fellow's spiritual sense was unusually sensitive. It immediately realized that the situation was not optimistic. Wang Yu, Shun Ming, follow my divine beast immediately. Don't make a single mistake, Sumo said sternly. Wang Yu and Shun Ming were slightly stunned. That was because they were ready to merge, but Sumo asked them to leave. If you merge, you'll be a burden to me too. Leave now while you still can. Sumo knew what they were thinking and said in an unquestionable tone, go with him. It will bring you to an absolutely safe place. Black Lotus won't dare to do anything to us. Wang Yu said, I'm just afraid that no one will care so much at the last moment. Sumo said, don't worry. Once this is over, I'll go find you. Roar. At that moment, the little white pig was very alert and urged Wang Yu and Shun Ming with a low growl. Okay. Wang Yu felt that Sumo's words made sense. After all, with the 2 sisters around, Sumo would be distracted. Go to the cave abode in the soul storage altar. The little white pig nodded, then leaped out of the myriad realms azure ship. Wang Yu and Shun Ming followed closely behind. 1 beast and 2 humans disappeared into the galaxy. Sumo looked around, wary of the Black Lotus's power preventing Wang Yu and the others from leaving. However, the god puppets on the 9 lotuses did not do anything to stop them, because their target was Sumo. At that moment, the 9 god puppets formed hand seals at the same time. Among them, the purple-clothed puppet facing Sumo spoke. Lotus seal. Whoosh, whoosh. The 9 black lotuses swayed at the same time, and endless black light shot into the sky. The 9 black lotuses were like tens of thousands of black torches that were ignited in the galaxy. In an instant, tens of thousands of miles of the surrounding starry sky were completely sealed. An incomparably huge barrier was formed in this place. Sumo was right to let Wang Yu and the others leave first. Once the barrier in front of him was formed, even the Lotus technique would not be able to escape. This was because the boundary itself was a top-notch Lotus art. Not only did it trap Sumo, but it also cut off all connections with the outside world. At that moment, from outside the boundary, it looked calm. This was because the dark world itself had a kind of concealment power. Unless a real Lotus realm cultivator walked into this space-time, they would not be able to discover anything unusual. Of course, Sumo did not know about this. This time, the Black Lotus's power came prepared. After all, last time, they were stopped by the enforcers of Luo Fantown. The 9-peak, venerable realm cultivators were not a real match for Sumo. They were just pawns of the person who set up the formation. And this game was destined to be unusual. Looking again, not far from Sumo, a figure gradually appeared. Purple clothes, long hair. It was a male cultivator. He slowly raised his head, and his eyes suddenly emitted a blue light. When Sumo saw the man clearly, her expression changed. Chapter 10:25. Many of their encounters were actually accidents. The purple-robed cultivator had high cheekbones and slightly sunken cheeks. He was not a handsome man. In fact, he was somewhat ugly. However, he had a pair of natural blue eyes. In that aspect, he was similar to the Peacock royal clan. However, there was a strange purple cloud mark between his brows. He was a Lotus Knight with 2 stages of perfection. When Sumo saw that male cultivator, he couldn't help but freeze in the void. He recognized the purple-robed cultivator at a glance. He was the 3 Realms ghost prodigy, Bumyaotian. At this moment, Sumo finally understood why there were 9 god puppets around. They must be Bumyaotian's puppets. Only Bumyaotian could create such god dolls. It's been a while, Dark Sovereign. Bumyaotian smirked and looked at Sumo. Why are you here? Sumo frowned. Why can't it be me? Bumyaotian smiled. Because you're a cultivator of the 3 realms. Sumo said. Bumyaotian shook his head. Dark Sovereign, the 3 realms no longer exist. Now we are in the hidden realm. The galaxy of the 3 realms is only a small part of the hidden realm. You become Black Lotus's subordinate? Sumo said coldly. Bumyaotian, are you betraying the 3 realms and acting as an accomplice? Betraying the 3 realms and acting as an accomplice. Bumyaotian's blue eyes flickered. Dark Sovereign, when I was in the 3 realms, was I the master of the 3 realms? Wasn't that an accomplice? What difference does it make whose accomplice I am? You? Sumo wanted to say something, but she felt that it was meaningless. After all, once one reached the Lotus Realm, many things should be done according to one's heart. Bumyaotian had chosen Black Lotus. Unless he was willing to change, no one would be able to change his mind. Bumyaotian, I heard that you were suppressed in another realm. It seems that my information was not accurate enough. Sumo said. Another realm? Bumyaotian laughed. For the dust realm, I am indeed in another realm. However, I was not suppressed. To be precise, I was guarded. I also heard that you basically incorporated the corpseless sect in the Dust Luo world. You've named East Starfield the Pure Land Starfield. That's right. Sumo sneered. Chiwuhui has already been sealed by me. Busiyun has already fallen, and Bu Xingkong is not your divine puppet. He is Qing Qianzong's reincarnator. He has already awakened. Oh, The blue light in Bumyaotian's eyes flickered again. He did not seem to be interested in Sumo's words, but he heaved a long sigh. Why does the starry sky have to awaken? Actually, wasn't it good to be a god's puppet? He could forget the past. That way, in the Izong world, you will be a completely new you. Bumyaotian, that's not a new you, but a new puppet. Sumo said. What's wrong with being a puppet? Bumyaotian said. Nether supremacy, your appearance has ruined my dream. Originally, I was prepared to turn the entire East Star region into a puppet star region, and then turn the Dust realm into a puppet star realm. Unfortunately, this variable appeared too early. Bumyaotian, there's a demon in your heart. Sumo said. A demon? Bumyaotian could not help but laugh. Nether supremacy, don't you find it interesting? You once controlled the 3 realms and wanted it to reincarnate. Blue Sea once stirred the karma roulette and wanted the 3 realms to live forever. You call all your thoughts beliefs. Then why is it that my Bumyaotian's thoughts are demonic? I want to build an eternal puppet world. They will be more orderly. Isn't that better than the many worlds where the weak are prey to the strong? Bumyaotian's eyes shone. Besides, you will understand once you see more Nether supremacy. In fact, all worlds are puppets, because all worlds are governed by different laws. I just want to be the one who sets the laws of a world. There's nothing wrong with that. Sumo could not help but raise an eyebrow at Bumyaotian's words. In fact, at that moment, he felt that the Bumyaotian in front of him was very much like his past self. Back then, in the 3 realms, Sumo had indeed wanted the 3 realms to follow his plan. Bumyaotian, the Nether supremacy was wrong back then, Sumo said in a low voice. In fact, all living beings in any world should choose everything for themselves, not us. Bumyaotian sneered. Nether supremacy, it's easy for you to say, but in all the worlds, who can choose everything for themselves? Once in the 3 realms, we thought that the venerables were omnipotent, but later, we found that the venerables were not free either. Now that we have all become Lotus Warriors, are Lotus Warriors free? Not necessarily. Bumyaotian shook her head and answered her own question. So, doing what we want to do and what we can do at our level is not a demon, but the meaning of our existence. Sumo shook his head. Those who walk different paths cannot make plans together. So that's how it is. Bumyaotian smiled. We're different people. Nether supremacy. I'm afraid you won't be able to leave here today. A special barrier has been set up here, so the people of Fallen Mortal Town won't know what's going on here. So no one will come to stop the Black Lotus from killing you. Oh? Hee. Sumo couldn't help but laugh. It seems that you've been stopped before. That won't happen again, Bu Miaotian said. Hee. Sumo looked at Bu Miaotian and sneered. But Bu Miaotian, with just you? Back then, you couldn't become a venerable in the 3 realms, and now, you're no match for me. Is that so? Bu Miaotian's expression instantly turned cold, because the last thing he wanted to admit was that he was inferior to the venerables of the 3 realms. Back then, he had risked everything to become a venerable, but he had not succeeded. That was his eternal pain, and it could even be said to be a real demon. Absolutely, Sumo said coldly. Whoosh, Bu Miaotian didn't say anything else. Instead, he waved his hand. His purple robe was the same style as the soulless Taoist robe. It was also a battle robe he had carefully chosen for today. With a flick of his sleeve, a beam of lotus energy shot straight at Sumo. This was the most ordinary attack of a lotus warrior, but Sumo didn't dare to be careless. After all, his opponent was the ghost genius of the 3 realms. In fact, Bu Miaotian hadn't become a venerable all those years ago because of his mental state, not his battle prowess. Not only was his battle prowess not weak, but it was also very strong. The ghost genius of the 3 realms techniques were always unpredictable and unpredictable. Sumo's figure quickly retreated. At the same time, he waved his hand, and the lotus vine appeared in his hand. Bu Miaotian's long sleeve swung at him. It expanded in the wind. The sleeve was like a purple rainbow, instantly stretching for several kilometers as it shot towards Sumo. The lotus vine in Sumo's hand shook, and he whipped it at the purple rainbow. Boom! The lotus vine was a top-grade lianbois. Bu Miaotian's purple sleeve naturally couldn't compare to it. With a boom, purple butterflies flew everywhere in the universe. Bu Miaotian's sleeve was torn apart by Sumo's lotus vine. This was supposed to be a normal exchange of blows. However, the purple butterfly that had been flying around suddenly flashed. Their bodies glowed with blue light at the same time, as if they had really turned into butterflies. Sizzle, sizzle, the butterflies were like knives. They turned into thousands of purple birds and shot towards Sumo like meteors. Everything could be a puppet. Everything around Bu Miaotian could be his weapon. Chapter 10:26. The birds were like blades, emitting a myriad of purple rays. Sumo smiled coldly as he held the lotus vine in his hand. Then, he formed a hand seal. Wind, arise. Whoosh! In an instant, endless black wind surged from Sumo's feet, sweeping everything in its path. The black wind also contained the power of the lotus. In truth, it was enough to destroy a small world. Whoosh! The birds were blocked by the black wind. At that moment, they were like moths flying into a flame. Rays of dazzling purple light exploded and disappeared. At the same time, Sumo's lotus vines were already attacking Bu Miaotian. Sumo knew Bu Miaotian very well. The longer the battle, the more advantageous it was for Bu Miaotian, because no one knew how many puppets he had on him. The puppetry techniques of the Qin clan of the 3 realms all originated from Bu Miaotian. A puppeteer that could slaughter an entire city of cultivators was definitely not a legend. It had actually happened before. Any puppeteer cultivator had the ability to challenge those at a higher level. Spirit cultivators and puppeteers were both top-notch cultivators. Not to mention, Bu Miaotian was the ancestor of all puppeteers. Therefore, Sumo didn't want the battle to drag on for too long. Sumo was confident that he could kill a Lotus Realm 2nd stage cultivator. Whoosh! The lotus vines curled up and lashed to Bu Miaotian's waist. At this point, Bu Miaotian's sleeve had already been repaired. From the looks of it, the purple robe was a Dharma robe. Seeing Sumo's lotus vines flying at him, Bu Miaotian didn't even try to dodge. This was a bit unexpected for Sumo. Sumo's lotus vines were top-grade lianbois. Not to mention that Bu Miaotian was only a Lotus Realm 2nd stage cultivator, Even Dharma Lotus King wouldn't dare to use his physical body to resist a top-grade Lianbua. Bu Miaotian definitely had a plan. However, Sumo didn't care that much. This time, he didn't hold back at all. Boom! Crack! Sumo's lotus vines landed solidly on Bu Miaotian's body. However, Bu Miaotian's body didn't break. The lotus vines swung and wrapped around Bu Miaotian's fleshly body. At the same time, Sumo shook her hand. The lotus vines danced, and Bu Miaotian rose with them. Hee, Sumo sneered. Because Bu Miaotian had actually borrowed the strength of Sumo's lotus vines to suddenly pounce towards Sumo. Close combat. That was the puppet's most important attack method. However, how could Sumo give him a chance? Sumo brandished the lotus vines in her right hand and drew the Kuin Soul Saber with her left. The Kuin Soul Saber was raised, and the saber radiance was boundless. The blade slashed toward Bu Miaotian. The Kuin Soul Saber's offensive power was even greater than the lotus vines. The Kuin Soul Saber struck Bu Miaotian. This time, there were no more accidents. Bu Miaotian's entire body was cut in half by the Kuin Soul Blade. However, there was no bloody light in the void at all. As soon as the blue light appeared, both halves of Bu Miaotian's body jerked. A pair of legs, a torso, and a head grew out of the upper and lower halves. In an instant, the two Bu Miaotians lunged at Sumo from left and right. Puppet division technique. Sumo immediately realized that the previous Bu Miaotian was simply a puppet. He wasn't Bu Miaotian's true body at all. However, that puppet's level might be higher than a divine puppet. Therefore, Sumo couldn't see it at all. In the blink of an eye, the two Bu Miaotians were 100 feet away from Sumo. One of them raised a hand and drew a long spear. The tip of the spear was in the shape of a black lotus. The other Bu Miaotian formed a seal with both hands. A flywheel flew out from the top of his head. The flywheel was also engraved with the image of a black lotus. The two Bu Miaotians had both drawn out Lianbua. In terms of level, they weren't as high as Sumo's Lianbua. However, there were definitely not many lotus warriors who could draw out two Lianbua at the same time. Not to mention that these were two puppets. In the blink of an eye, if Sumo's current cultivation base was still at the peak of the Venerable Realm, then Bu Miaotian's puppet division technique could directly end the battle. However, Sumo was already a lotus warrior. The moment Bu Miaotian split his body, Sumo had already reacted. He flipped his wrists at the same time, one hand holding the lotus vine, the other the Kuin Soul Saber. The lotus vine returned faster than the two Bu Miaotians. With a thought, Sumo's lotus power surged on the lotus vine. Thousands of vines sprouted from the lotus vine. This was the effect of a lotus warrior controlling Lianbua. The lotus vine instantly formed a large net that directly enveloped the spear-wielding Bu Miaotian. The Kuin Soul Saber glowed again and slashed at Bu Miaotian, who had drawn out his flywheel. The movements of both sides were extremely fast. Boom, boom. This time, the two Bu Miaotians didn't take on Sumo's two Lianbua head-on. Instead, they chose to change directions and retreat in time. It seemed that the body division technique couldn't be used again. However, the aftermath of the four Lianbua still caused a collision. Fortunately, this area of the barrier had been completely blocked. Otherwise, dust and smoke would have been everywhere. Now, there seemed to be no spectators in the galaxy apart from the 9-peak Venerable Realm divine puppets. It seemed that no one was watching the battle between Sumo and Bu Miaotian. If their battle was not within the barrier, it would be enough to stir up the entire Cerulean Bainan and Northern Azure galaxies. At this moment, the 9 divine puppets at the peak of the Venerable Realm were all motionless with their hands folded in a hand seal. This was because they were doing their best to maintain the balance of the entire barrier. In their eyes, Sumo and Bu Miaotian were just different lights. They could no longer see the battle between the two clearly. In the blink of an eye, Sumo and Bu Miaotian had exchanged more than a dozen attacks and defenses. Neither of them was able to take advantage of the other. Sumo frowned. This was because he couldn't figure out where the real Bu Miaotian was. Could it be that Bu Miaotian was residing in one of the puppets? In fact, Sumo also knew the art of puppetry. However, His puppetry technique paled in comparison to Bu Miaoyan's. It was not even worth mentioning. Bu Miaoyan was definitely a top-notch expert in puppetry. The two Bu Miaotians had put great pressure on Sumo. Currently, Sumo was mostly relying on his powerful Lianbua to maintain the balance. Nether supremacy, I know you still have Lianbua. Why don't you use them all? What do you think? One of them, Bu Miaoyan, did not forget to provoke even though he was busy. Sumo sneered. However, at this moment, he could not help but think of something. That was because he thought of a possibility. The other party wanted him to use all of his Lianbua. Immediately, Sumo did not hesitate. Clang. With a thought, Sumo directly took out the yin-yang bell. It was not the first time that Sumo had used the yin-yang bell. The cultivators from the Black Lotus sect must have known that he had this artifact. The yin-yang bell could determine life and death. As soon as the yin-yang bell was taken out, Sumo immediately rang it with the power of the lotus. In an instant, invisible sound waves swept across the galaxy. The sound waves were like rolling thunder in the ears of ordinary cultivators. They would definitely shake their minds. At this moment, the 9 cultivators at the peak of the martial supremacy realm were slightly startled. They instantly changed the hand seals with their hands. A curtain of water appeared in front of them. They then set up a barrier in front of them. Otherwise, they would not be able to withstand the impact of the yin-yang bell. Meanwhile, the two Bu Miaotians turned a deaf ear to the yin-yang bell. With a strange smile on their faces, they seemed to be stepping on the sound waves to charge at Sumo again. Sumo suddenly raised his eyebrows. Chapter 10:27. The two Bu Miaotians weren't afraid of the yin-yang bell soundwave attack. This was something Sumo hadn't expected. It meant that Bu Miaoyan's soul wasn't in the two puppets at all. Otherwise, one of them wouldn't have dared to act rashly. After all, the yin-yang bell's sound wave could definitely destroy one's soul. However, one of the two puppets was heading straight for Sumo, while the other was going straight for the yin-yang bell. Sumo was right. The goal of the two Bu Miaotians seemed to be to force Sumo to summon the yin-yang bell. However, Sumo didn't know the specifics of their goal. The yin-yang bell was a top-grade Lianbua. Even if the Glaze realm was destroyed, the bell would remain intact. So what could they do to it? Whoosh! The two Bu Miaotians thrust their spears at Sumo, while the flywheel in the other Bu Miaotian's hand also flew towards Sumo, but he went straight for the yin-yang bell. Sumo raised an eyebrow. He didn't care about the yin-yang bell. The lotus vine in his hand once again turned into a net and shot toward the spear-wielding Bu Miaoyan. At the same time, the Kuan Soul Saber slashed at him. Sumo used all his strength to deal with one. Strangely, the spear-wielding Bu Miaoyan didn't dodge this time. Instead, he followed the two Lianbua and slammed into Sumo's lotus vine and the Kuan Soul Saber. That was simply a battle of life and death. Had the puppet gone mad? Or perhaps the cultivator controlling it had gone mad. Even a Lotus Realm puppet couldn't face the Lianbua head-on like this. Could it be that the puppet could split into two? Sumo's mind raced, but he didn't hold back at all. No matter what, he had to destroy one of the puppets first. Whoosh! The Lotus Vine net enveloped Bu Miaoyan and the Lianbua flywheel. However, the Lianbua's spear stabbed forward. But Sumo's Kuan Soul Saber arrived. In a flash, wind and thunder rumbled. Boom! Crack! This time, the Kuan Soul blade landed solidly on the Lianbua's spear. In fact, Sumo wasn't completely confident. After all, the outcome of a duel between two pieces of Lianbua was unpredictable. I'll risk it all. The long spear actually broke into two. Sumo's heart skipped a beat. The Kuan Soul blade was indeed a top-notch Lianbua, but this blade seemed a little too easy. At the last moment, Sumo didn't even feel her arm tremble or stop. Pseudo Lianbua? Sumo's expression changed, because he thought of a possibility. That long spear was not a real lotus treasure at all. It only contained a lotus intent. It was actually just a venerable divine weapon that had a layer of lotus intent. It looked like a Lianbua, but in fact it had a golden exterior and was rotten inside. No wonder Bu Miaoyan had been avoiding contact with the divine weapon. Probably only Bu Miaoyan could pass off the divine weapon as genuine. But under the attack of the top-notch Lianbua, its true form was revealed. However, Bumyaotian didn't care about the pseudo-Lianbua at all. They were originally tools and cannon fodder. Bang! At the same time, Sumo's lotus vines suddenly tightened. Bumyaotian and the flywheel were forcibly crushed by the net of lotus vines. However, Bumyaotian's body burst with a bluish-green brilliance. The person controlling the puppet seemed to have already expected this. Venom. Sumo raised an eyebrow. This was because he saw that the bluish-green brilliance was like a stream in the universe, and, at the same time, it emitted a strange fragrance. Bang! Number 5 on the other side. The other Bumyaotian also crashed into the yin-yang bell. At that moment, it was like a person who didn't care about his life desperately crashing into the southern wall. Clang, clang, the yin-yang bell shook violently. Endless sound waves rose in an instant. But then it stopped abruptly. When she looked again, Bumyaotian was thrown onto the yin-yang bell like a pile of mud. At that moment, it was impossible to see Bumyaotian's human form. It was just a pile of purple mud. When she looked again, the purple mud was growing on the yin-yang bell at a speed visible to the naked eye. Almost in an instant, it covered the entire body of the yin-yang bell. In Sumo's eyes, the purple mud looked like countless crawling insects. Sumo's heart stirred. However, the yin-yang bell shook slightly, but didn't make a sound. At that moment, Sumo finally understood the purpose of the two Bumyaotian puppets. Sizzle. When Sumo's lotus vine net was contaminated by the venom, it began to wither rapidly. Finally, the lotus vines completely turned into broken bamboo poles. Sumo indeed didn't expect such a situation. The two top-notch Lianbua weapons lost their effect at the same time. In a way, this was equivalent to cutting off both of Sumo's arms. The Lianbua was Sumo's greatest trump card. Of course, both Bumyaotian puppets were now useless. At that moment, Sumo realized that they were also Lotus Knight puppets. They weren't really Lotus Knights at all. At that moment, there was another ripple in the air. Right in front of Sumo, another Bumyaotian appeared. This Bumyaotian was almost identical to the two Bumyaotians from before. The only difference was that the mark between this Bumyaotian's eyebrows was golden. Real body. Sumo narrowed her eyes and looked coldly at Bumyaotian. As expected of a genius of the three realms. Sumo said, "Your two puppets just now indeed fooled me. This time, it's your real body, isn't it?" Hee hee. Bumyaotian chuckled. Above divine puppets are lotus puppets. It takes 9 million years to make a single lotus puppet. All of the materials used are precious treasures of the three realms. These two lotus puppets are all I have. In the three realms, there's only one person who can force me to use these two lotus puppets. Apart from the paragons of the three realms, there's no one else. Why? Sumo said, "Because I want to prove myself. I'm stronger than the paragons of the three realms." Bumyaotian said solemnly. Sumo shook her head. "Bumyaotian, that's your obsession. Unfortunately, you'll never be able to fulfill it." "Oh." Bumyaotian was stunned. "Because this is no longer the three realms." Sumo laughed coldly. "This is the hidden realm. The hidden realm is a completely different world from the three realms. Becoming a paragon in the three realms means becoming a lotus in the hidden realm. The difficulty of becoming a paragon in the three realms is even greater than becoming a lotus in the hidden realm. So, even if you're a Lotus Knight now, that doesn't mean you're stronger than the paragons of the three realms. Times have changed. This realm is another realm. So, your obsession will never be resolved." Ha ha ha. When she heard Sumo's words, Bumyaotian couldn't help but throw her head back and laugh. "Nether Sovereign, are you trying to cast a spell on me? Then you've underestimated me. No matter when or where, the victor is king. As long as I defeat you, my obsession will be resolved. I don't care about what you say at all." Sumo's expression was calm. "Even so, Bumyaotian, do you really think you could defeat me just because you froze my two Lianbua techniques?" "I'll definitely defeat you," Bumyaotian said. "Bumyaotian, you didn't become a paragon in the three realms back then. That means you're flawed. But now, you're a black lotus eagle hound? Sumo shook her head. Then her expression turned cold. Today, I'll let you know. Whether it's in the three realms or the hidden realm, you're no match for us. Today, I'll clean up the three realms. You must die. As she spoke, Sumo's long hair suddenly flew into the air. At the same time, she formed a strange seal in front of her chest, and a black vortex instantly appeared beneath her feet. It was a special art. Lotus intent spread, and killing intent soared to the heavens. Chapter 1028. The black whirlpool rippled with light. There was an illusory lotus inside. Bumyaotian knew a thing or two about the arts of the three realms. He believed that one of his advantages over the supremacies of the three realms was his understanding of them, while the supremacies of the three realms did not know anything about him in the Yizong world. However, he had never seen Sumo's technique before. Moreover, when Sumo's black whirlpool appeared, Bumyaotian felt his soul tremble. There seemed to be an inexplicable force in the black whirlpool that was summoning him. The black whirlpool was like an abyss. When Bumyaotian solidified the abyss stared back at him. An illusion. Bumyaotian's heart trembled, because as long as one was a cultivator, they would have their own weaknesses. Bumyaotian's battle prowess was unquestionable. However, his relative weakness was his temperament. Back then, he could not become a supremacy because his state of mind was not perfect enough. Later, he massacred the Miyun villa, thinking that he had gotten rid of an inner demon. However, he did not expect that the people he massacred were all his bloodline descendants. Therefore, not only did he not get rid of the inner demon, but he also added another one. He only became a supremacy after coming to the Yizong world. That was because the laws of the two worlds were different. The reason why Bumyaotian wanted to build the so-called puppet world was because he wanted his temperament to be perfect. Just now, he had to wait for Sumo to summon the Yin-Yang bell before he was willing to destroy his lotus puppet. His biggest concern was that the bell's sound wave attack would severely injure his soul. However, he had underestimated Sumo's understanding of him. Sumo knew Bumyaotian's problem well, so she used an illusion right from the start. That was the technique that Bumyaotian feared the most. Bumyaotian. Sumo's voice was cold, and the black whirlpool under her feet instantly expanded. You came from the three realms, so you must return. The souls of the three realms are still here, so don't even think about getting rid of the entanglement of karma. Do you dare to enter my formation? Sumo's voice was like a divine oracle, echoing endlessly in the universe. The waves of the whirlpool had already spread to Bumyaotian's feet. The ripples were like black snakes spitting their tongues, and the endless saliva converged into a black sea. Hee, why would I dare? As he spoke, Bumyaotian strode into the black ocean. Bumyaotian was a little scared, but he knew that if he did not dare to step into the black sea, his state of mind would never be complete. Who? Hua. Bumyaotian stepped into the black sea, and Sumo seemed to be standing right in front of him. Dark Supremacy, I've entered your illusory formation. What can I do? Although they were in the black sea, Bumyaotian did not feel anything wrong. Sumo sneered. Bumyaotian, you will regret this. With that said, Sumo's hand seal changed. Who? Hua. When he looked again, the black waves instantly turned blue. Immediately, the rolling seawater began to surge outwards. Everything in Bumyaotian's eyes was changing. In front of them was actually a continent, Cloud Continent, Devil Continent, Azuro World's cloud mainland. Bumyaotian sneered when she saw that. In fact, he had thought that Sumo might create this place. In the distance was a beautiful purple mountain range. Immortal energy curled around it. An auspicious bird soared. Miyun Purple Mountain had once been one of the 7 forbidden areas of Azuro World. Between the Purple Mountains, there was a group of ancient buildings floating in the air. Pavilions stood in great numbers, and cableways traversed the sky. It was as if a castle was suspended in midair. Half a sun hung in the sky. Between the mountains, dense purple mist shrouded the area. Many purple mountains surrounded the area, making the palaces even more noble and extraordinary. The most eye-catching thing was the solidified purple clouds in the sky above the ancient palaces. They condensed and did not disperse. Together, they formed four large words that resembled ancient seals. Muyun of the Three Realms. Muyun of the Three Realms. Muyun Villa. Bumyaotian's expression was grave. The Muyun Villa Sumo had created was even more realistic than the Siyun Villa he had created himself. How did Sumo do it? Bumyaotian was puzzled. Even the most powerful illusory technique was illusory. They were both Lotus warriors, but Bumyaotian's realm was higher than Sumo's. Therefore, even though Bumyaotian was wary of illusory techniques, he was confident that he could break through everything. However, Sumo's illusory realm was too realistic. Clink, 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 wind chimes. Violet wind chimes. Pleasant to the ear, one could forget all worries. The sound of wind chimes reached Bumyaotian's ears. Bumyaotian couldn't help but frown slightly. It was Yi Wuhui's wind chimes. Bumyaotian found it strange that Sumo could imitate Yi Wuhui's wind chimes. Although the violet wind chimes were a token of the Yi family, each chime had a different sound. It wasn't strange that Sumo could create violet wind chimes, but it was special that she could completely replicate Yi Wuhui's chimes. Sumo has seen Yi Wuhui before. She's heard Yi Wuhui's violet wind chimes, Bumyaotian thought. In fact, he was right. Sumo had indeed seen Yi Wuhui, and they were very close. Clink, 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 the violet wind chimes sounded urgent. Suddenly, a purple light flew out from the direction of the villa. It was a string of violet wind chimes, and behind it was a petite figure. It was a girl, no more than 7 or 8 years old. She wore a short-sleeved shirt and knee-length shorts. Her feet were bare. A chubby little girl, like a porcelain doll. Wuhui! Bumyaotian was stunned again. Because that was the scene when he met Yi Wuhui for the first time. How did Sumo know all this? The violet wind chimes swam through the air like a fish. They moved at an incredible speed, changing from left to right. Little Yi Wuhui couldn't catch them at all. He was so tired that he grunted and puffed up his face. Clink, 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 the violet wind chimes danced in the wind. The sound of the violet wind chimes seemed to have a myriad of magical powers, and Bumyaotian found it difficult to move. He wanted to move forward, but he couldn't. In fact, he was not trapped. He just wanted to see Yi Wuhui's cute face again. Even though he knew it was an illusion, he felt that it was okay to look at it for a while. However, another voice made Bumyaotian's heart tremble. He heard a man's laughter. Then, he shook his head violently. He looked again and saw a purple figure slowly materializing outside the purple mountain. Purple robes and long hair. The face of the cultivator in purple was concealed by a spell. It was Bumyaotian himself. He stood in the air with his long sleeves hanging down, stepping on purple clouds. It was Bumyaotian's appearance when he walked out of the Zio immortal tomb. Nether supremacy, you're amazing, Bumyaotian muttered to himself. You've created another me? But so what? Can you let it happen again? You don't even know what happened? After all, no illusion could appear out of thin air. Who's laughing at me? Little Yi Wuhui was so annoyed that he didn't notice anyone. He shook his head and stared with his beautiful eyes. Hee. The purple-robed Bumyaotian seemed excited. I'm laughing at you. Bad guy. The little girl curled her lips in hatred, revealing 2 small canine teeth. It was very cute. The purple-robed Bumyaotian chuckled and waved her long sleeve. Clink, clink, clank. The violet wind chimes seemed to be summoned. They rushed out of the purple mountain and flew directly to the purple-robed man, then remained motionless. The little girl frowned. Give me back my chimes. Bumyaotian's expression kept changing, and he clenched his fists. The scene just now was exactly the same as it had been all those years ago. Their conversation had not changed at all. In fact, the past of the 3 realms had always been imprinted in Bumyaotian's heart. Never forgotten, never faded. But how did Sumo create everything? Chapter 10:29. The Cloud Continent, Muyun Villa. Bumyaotian saw himself and the young Yi Wu Hui in Sumo's formation. That was the first time he saw Yi Wu Hui. He didn't know that Yi Wu Hui was his bloodline. The purple wind chime moves with the wind and moves with it. It is a magic tool unique to Muyun Villa. It is only used to let the clansmen practice the Muyun movement technique. Only those who can cross the wind can chase the purple wind chime. Only those who can chase the chime can Muyun and become a true member of the Muyun Yi clan, Bu Miaoyan said to little Yi Wu Hui. Little Yi Wu Hui looked at Bu Miaoyan blankly and didn't say anything. Little boy, you are not a member of the Yi clan yet. Bu Miaoyan sighed. The sigh had a different meaning in Bu Miaoyan's ears. In fact, Bu Miaoyan knew that the moment he saw Yi Wu Hui, he didn't want to kill this little girl. It was an indescribable and inexplicable feeling. Perhaps it was because of the blood connection. Back then, he was giving himself a reason not to kill Yi Wu Hui. Therefore, before he joined Muyun Villa, he excluded him from the Yi clan. Who are you? You. Little Yi Wu Hui rolled his eyes at Bu Miaoyan. Hee. Bu Miaoyan smiled knowingly. He still remembered Yi Wu Hui's appearance when he was a child. But Bu Miaoyan didn't say anything. They couldn't see the real Bu Miaoyan, but he could see them clearly. Little princess. At this time, a young girl in cyan, who looked like a maid, had already stood in front of Yi Wu Hui. Little Yi Wu Hui was persuaded to go back. It was a seventh-layer sky, immortal female cultivator. Purple-robed Bu Miaoyan didn't waste any words, nor did she do anything superfluous. Muyun Villa's grand formation could not stop him at all. He directly advanced. The green-clothed servant girl wanted to cry out, but there was no sound. Her face revealed fear, and then she directly turned into a bloody mist. A seventh-stage sky immortal was nothing but an ant. Muyun, I'm back. I have never forgotten the oath I made back then. Not a single member of the Yi clan shall be spared. Bu Miaoyan watched as she headed straight for Muyun Villa and listened to her own self-righteous vow. However, his current mood was completely different from before. He knew that every member of the Yi family that Bu Miaoyan was about to kill was actually a member of the Bu family. Dark supremacy, what is the meaning of all this? Bu Miaoyan asked her mind. Did Wu Hui tell you all this? Because other than Yi Wu Hui, Bu Miaoyan could not think of anyone else who could tell Sumo everything. And then Sumo manifested everything. Bu Miaoyan focused her mind. The blue light in his eyes intensified. In fact, he also had a pair of special eyes. His eyes could see through all the puppets in the various worlds, and many of them were real and fake. When he first came to Yizong, he had once imitated Mutian Villa on pure Earth planet and built a Siyun Villa. Every puppet there could be mistaken for the real one. Therefore, Bu Miaoyan wanted to see if there were any puppets in Sumo's illusory art. However, when he opened his blue eyes, everything he saw was exactly the same as before. Purple Mountain was still Purple Mountain, and Muyun was still Muyun. Even the back of the purple-clothed Bu Miaoyan did not change at all. Dark supremacy, your illusory art has reached such a high level. Bu Miaoyan gasped. He really did not expect Sumo to have cultivated illusory art to such an extreme level. So far, he had not found any flaws in the illusory formation. It was a completely perfect formation. Therefore, Bu Miaoyan did not want to leave the formation for the time being, and he could not. He followed his former self and headed straight for Muyun Villa. Outside the villa, 3 figures lined up in a row. The 3 men were all dressed in black. Black guards. First layer, original immortal realm. They were the outer guards of Muyun Villa. To be honest, Bu Miaoyan could not remember what they looked like. They were only guards and should not be of his bloodline. However, Bu Miaoyan felt that these 3 guards were the same 3 from back then. Whoosh, purple-clothed Bu Miaoyan arrived in front of them. First layer, original immortal realm was not worth mentioning before him. His long hair swayed slightly. Bu Miaoyan's gait did not change, but his originally drooping sleeves were gently rolled up. Swish, 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 swish. The 3 black guards attacked at the same time. Clink, clank, clank. Bu Miaoyan tapped his sleeves 3 times, and the 3 black guards were instantly sent flying. In the air, The three grunted at almost the same time. The immortal swords left their hands and fell into the bottomless abyss. The black clothes of the three black guards were torn, and their bodies turned into black mist. At that moment, Bumyao-yin, who was watching the battle from behind, raised his brows again. Everything was a repeat of what had happened back then. The people from back then had not changed. Every movement and tone of voice was the same, and even the light from their spells was the same. In truth, Bumyao-yin did not remember every detail. However, everything he saw seemed to awaken him. Everything from back then came rushing back at him. The moment the three black guards died, Bumyao-yin was already close to the gate of Muyun Villa. Gray bricks, purple tiles, azure light diffused. Buildings stretched on endlessly, and purple mist curled around them. Muyun Villa had a transcendent and serene beauty. Outside the gate, Bumyao-yin paused slightly, and so did Bumyao-yin. However, Bumyao-yin's halting had different meanings behind them. Bumyao-yin was both unfamiliar and familiar with Muyun Villa. There was a hint of hesitation in Bumyao-yin's heart. Is everything in front of me really Sumo's illusion? He wondered if he should follow his past self through the gate. Would he see all the killing again? However, he did not want to remember it. Whoosh, whoosh. However, at that moment, the gate of Muyun Villa opened, and two white figures rushed out. One from the left, and one from the right. They attacked Bumyao-yin. Who dares to cause trouble in Muyun Villa? Muyun White Guards. Third layer Immortal Realm. They wielded silver spears and moved like dragons, but they could not harm Bumyao-yin in the slightest. Crack, bang, bang. Bumyao-yin's sleeves waved like two long whips. The two immortal spears were actually broken. At the same time, the remaining half of the spear rebounded and smashed toward the two white guards. Boom! The bodies of the two white guards were cut in half at the waist, and their immortal hearts shattered. Then, Bumyao-yin stepped into the gate of Muyun Villa. The purple cloud under his feet dispersed, and he stomped lightly on the ground. Clang, clang, hum. At that moment, the sound of a bronze bell reverberated in the air. Muyun Villa had already issued a warning. Bumyao-yin was slightly shocked when he heard the bell sound, because he suddenly thought of a possibility. At that moment, a dozen figures appeared in the first courtyard of Muyun Villa. 8 white guards surrounded a young master in black brocade robes. The man was tall, but he was not handsome. In fact, he was ugly. Yi Xingmu. It was Yi Wuhui's big brother. He was Bumyao-yin's bloodline. At that moment, Bumyao-yin was in a trance. Everything seemed to have passed in an instant. He only saw Bumyao-yin break the cloud-shocking formation. Then Bumyao-yin's sleeve flew toward Yi Xingmu again. Boom! At that critical moment, a beam of black light descended from the sky and blasted the sleeve away. The crow deity is here. Young master, please retreat. The crow deity? Bumyao-yin's eyes flashed blue. He saw a black-clothed puppet, a real puppet. His expression changed drastically. There was a puppet because it meant that everything in front of him was not an illusion. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.